Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Groton Board of Education meeting. This is a Committee of the Whole meeting being held on March 10th, 2025, and the meeting is being called to order at 6:04. Tonight in attendance we have Matt Schulman, Jen White, myself, Bev Washington, and Adrian Johnson, as we're all board members. And online we have Dr. Ackerman, Ian Thomas, Jay, and Mike Whitney. And I'm pretty sure Dean is going to be absent today because he doesn't feel well. The first item on the agenda is review of the meeting minutes of December 2nd, 2024. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Okay. Matthew, do I have a second? Jen? Thank you. Any discussion about the minutes? Comments? Corrections? No? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes of December 2nd, 2024, say aye.
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 Okay. Opposed? Okay, approved. All right, the next item is a discussion of the International Baccalaureate Program and the offerings that they have up at the high school. And
so I had let Principal Brown, both Dr. Mancini and I had let Principal Brown know that the board was particularly interested in the International Baccalaureate Program. As you know, we have the middle years program for all middle schoolers all the way through 10th grade. And we've talked about the MYP personal project. We'll bring back some more information. There will be an expo this year we can tell you about. I hope you can join. And then we have the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program and the International Baccalaureate Career Program. And we're quite proud of it. And I know that we had reached out to Chris Morth, who is really leading the charge with the IB program at the high school. He's been involved in really the diploma for a long time. He's learned more about the career program and now sees the MYP and the personal project as the conduit to that. So I think he's going to come up to the table. And I don't know, Carmita, if you could join him too. And then if we have a student or a parent that wants to come up at some point, we can certainly bring them up. But I think you're going to kind of orient people a little bit, and I think you had some attachments that shared what the students felt about the program. I see some parents and students also with us today that might want to speak at some point.
Students on, and former students online as well.
Yeah. So I know the board was very interested in our students' perspective as well, and how ready they are when they go to college. I know it's a lot of hard work, but I've heard at Mystic Market and around town, when I run into parents, they often will come up and say that the transition to college was quite smooth and they felt very well prepared when they went off to some very high-performing colleges. Mm-hmm. So I'll let you take off because you really have, this great understanding of it.
I'll try to be brief so that the real stars of the show can talk here. So just briefly, my quick little 30-second history with IB. I was hired in Groton in 2010. I taught all 9th and 10th grade for years. I knew IB was an acronym in the school. I knew nothing else about it for years and years and years. 2017, I started teaching the IB literature class. I really enjoyed teaching the class because of the students in it and the curriculum. I thought it was the best way to teach English, but I still didn't really understand the diploma program as a whole, and it kind of remained that way for a long time. And it wasn't until the fall of 2023, Carmita and Matt Brown came to my room and said, "Hey, would you like to be the diploma coordinator?" And I kind of was like, all right. I was IB curious at the time, so I dove in feet first and spent much of last year just trying to keep my head above water, learn the ins and outs of the program, and through doing so, started to really understand the IB diploma program as a whole and the value that it held, which is, again, not something that I really, even 2 years ago after teaching IB English for a while, really understood. So Over the last year, I've really fallen in love with the program and have tried to become a great advocate for it. So in December of this year, I had been talking to some of the guidance counselors, and I reached out to last year's diploma graduates. I had created a survey asking them about their IB diploma experiences, trying to get some feedback on them, what they found most helpful, what they would say to a current Fitch High School student, just trying to get some data for myself for how to improve the program going forward. And then in January of this year, Dr. Mancini called and asked if I could reach out to some more students to present to the board on February 3rd. So that was a very organic thing where I went through my personal contact list of students that I had in class. I wasn't the diploma coordinator, but I'd had them in literature class in years past, and just tried to track down anybody that I could and ask them if they would be willing to fill out the survey on their experiences. So I had 32 students respond to that survey. I have the results. That survey and the results are linked to this presentation that we can share later. And then found out a few days later that we were going to table the discussion of the IB until after the budget was taken care of. So, but I was asked to tell students that if they wanted to write a letter about their IB diploma experiences, they could. So I told everybody, hey, if you guys want to talk about the value you see in the IB diploma experiences, what would you want to say to the Board of Education about the value of the IB diploma in your life? I also reached out to some of to all of our current diploma students and their parents, asking if any of them wanted to offer any feedback as well. Collected those letters, sent those letters in, and then found out recently, a couple weeks ago, that we were going to have this meeting on the 10th, and let anyone know that if they want to come speak today or come on pop on the Zoom and talk, that they could speak about that. So over the last sorry, I missed a thing. So right after midterm exams, as we had a very brief turnaround between the end of midterms and when course registration started. So I spent 2 weeks going to the 10th grade classes, talking to them about the diploma program, but also about the career-related program, which is, it started a few years ago at Fitch. It never got off the ground because of COVID, and now we're kind of hard restarting it now. And then I talked with our Rebecca Baez about doing a Zoom meeting offering a Zoom meeting for parents in the district. So on February 19th, I had 2 Zoom meetings, one at noon, one at 6 p.m., and had 60 or 70 total participants there. And this is the presentation that I showed them, talked to them about the diploma program, what it is, diploma program and career-related program, what it is, what it has to offer, and how to get yourself involved in it. In terms of the value of it, which I never really saw the forest through the trees when I was just teaching the English class, but since then, now that I teach the theory of knowledge class, I help lead the extended essay. I've learned all about CAS. I've learned about how all the different diploma classes come together, and that's where I've really seen the value in it. And when I first started at Fitch, and for a long time, people would want to talk about AP and IB because there's a natural comparison point there, that they are both classes that are for students on a track to go to college. And the question that people would always ask is, well, do I get college credit for this class? So that's kind of how I always framed the AP IB thing in my mind for the longest time. And it's only been within the last year that I really, truly believe that that's not the correct question to be asking. I think the question that students and parents and we as a community should be asking is this class preparing me for college? Because getting college credit and being prepared for what college is like is a fundamentally different goal. And that's where I see the IB diploma value. Like most of us in here, I took AP and UConn co-op classes when I was in high school. That's all that was really offered. So that's kind of how I thought IB was before I started teaching it. But now that I've done it, I've experienced it as the coordinator and as a teacher, the depth of knowledge, discussion, the skills that IB requires of our students in terms of becoming a communicator, learning to have meaningful discussions with your peers, your teachers, the products that you are asked to produce. It's not the course doesn't exist to the goal of getting you to a multiple choice exam at the end of it in a couple of short essays. It is about learning how to be a psychologist, how to be a biologist, how to do these things. And that's when I've collected all these testimonials from our former students, that's what they speak most highly about. They speak about the extended essay, learning how to do research, and as you can see from the survey results, we've had students who have gone on to Southern, UConn, Yale, Harvard, Howard, like the full gamut of schools, and they universally speak about how much more prepared they feel than their peers. Not their peers at Fitch High School, their peers at Yale and Brown and UConn and Southern. And I think that really speaks to what the IB diploma program offers our students is, regardless of whether they get college credit or not, and a lot of them certainly did, that I think even if you strip all of that away, I would still tell students that if you're planning to go to college, you should do the diploma program because it is going to prepare you in a way for school that I don't think any other program around here really offers. So that's how my IB journey has come. That's kind of where I'm at right now with it.
It also prepares them for a career. When you think about the skills that are required in this day and age to collaborate and to work on research and, in any field almost.
Yeah, it's not like, I was a very quiet kid in high school. My students can't really believe this, but I didn't really talk in high school at all. But I was really good at test taking. So I'll memorize all the knowledge you want to give me and then give me my multiple choice exam at the end and I'll be great. And so I left Waterford High School with tons of AP and UConn co-op credits, and I went to UConn. And my freshman year at UConn was not great because what I was asked to do in college was not what I had been asked to do in my classes in high school. I had great teachers in high school. I enjoyed my high school experience, but the preparing for the multiple choice exam was just not what college was like. And it took me the better part of freshman year to really start understanding that. And then by sophomore year, I'd kind of figured everything out. I learned how things went. And I can't help but think that if I had had a program like IB and my classes had been structured more like that, I would have walked into UConn much, much more confident with what that was like. And it took me until after college to really learn how to be a communicator and how to be outgoing and talk. I started coaching at Griswold High School right after college. That's what started to force me to be a communicator, and that's what IB does. You can't hide in the class. Like in the IB literature course, one of the major assessments is the individual oral, where a student has to choose a global issue that they care about. They have to talk about 2 books, and they have to sit across from me and talk to me, and then they have to answer questions. We have to have a very meaningful 15-minute conversation, and I never did anything like that in college. But it's something, in high school, but it's a thing that happened regularly in college. Like I would go, I had to learn how to do that by going to my professors during their office hours and learning how to talk to my teacher on that level versus the kind of like teacher asking the question and then me giving them the answer, which is what high school was like.
Mm-hmm. Jen?
Yes.
So I'm an advocate, right? And so, and maybe this is like later on in your presentation, but what I'm most interested in is what's your plans for the program? How are you going to grow it? I'm assuming organically, right? And all of that. So if I can walk away with that at the end of this, I'll be good.
So what I've done, I did this year, and again, the timeline was very compressed this year. So I went and visited all the 10th grade English classes during a 2-week period after exams and before the registration portal closed, and talked to them about both the IB diploma program, the career-related program, and what IB courses we've offered. I don't have the numbers. The only numbers I do have are the English numbers. I know that, so right now in my senior English class, IB, we have 21. The juniors, there's 25, and there's 44 kids registered for IB English next year. So there's definitely growth there. But one of the things I'm learning now is that I'm reaching the extent of what I like. As someone, I've been a head coach for a long time. I like to relate a lot of things to my coaching career, and I was able to do a lot. I could be the primary driver, and I could do kind of everything. And I'm learning that in a school the size of Fitch, with as many different things that are going on, is that I need more people who understand the program, because there's people who like teaching their individual classes. And I think that's the next big growth point at Fitch, is having more people understand the value of the program as a whole, instead of everyone existing in their little fiefdoms around the school. So I'm hoping that the students who are here to speak and parents can talk about how incredible or how transformative the program has been, and then continue to let our students know, but also the staff and the faculty at Fitch High School to know, because I can advocate for the program till I'm blue in the face, and I have, but there's some pretty real limits to that. So I'm hoping that if I can continue to spread the word, but increase the education because there's a lot of teachers who are like me, who have taught at Fitch High School for 15, 20, 25 years, and have never taught an IB class and don't really know what it is. I wasn't here when IB came to Fitch High School, but I think one of the major issues is that when it was brought here, it was for this select few. I don't know if that's how it was intentioned or just what kind of happened, but it was this very elite program for a select few for a long time, and that's kind of what I thought it was as well, because I only knew it through the lens of Fitch High School. And it wasn't until going to some of these workshops and talking to teachers from all over the country and the world that I got to see that that's not what the program is. It is accessible to everybody, and the roadblocks that exist at Fitch High School are generally self-created. They are barriers that we have put in place, either via perception, scheduling, our program of studies being, the number of offerings that we have. So trying to work on identifying the barriers, because I think every student at Fitch High School could benefit from the diploma program or the career-related program. It doesn't have to be just for kids who are going to Harvard and Yale. Anybody could benefit from it. So that's really my goal, is to continue identifying barriers and working on ways to overcome them.
And you've certainly widened your circle of friends.
Yes.
You've always said it can't be just one person directing this, that it really needs to be people from all departments. It needs to be some administrators, who's also have taught this, maybe administrators who haven't but get training, because their last DODEA grant is all about IB, and it was $1,250,000 to really get that training and to be able to grow this program in a unique way, even looking and examining the primary years program, which is the elementary program. So I think you've done a great job with that, Chris, and it is better to have more people who understand the whole program. Like, you understood your course, and that's important, and you like teaching it. I know you did too, Carmita, but to understand what it does, the program does. And I'm excited to hear, too, from what the kids are saying about this as well, and the parents.
Did you identify any barriers yet?
Oh, there's so many of them. Some major ones. So, I mean, the perception within the school is kind of one of the most obvious ones. That there's this perception that it is an elitist program. It's not for everybody. That's certainly one. Our program of studies, one of our greatest strengths at Fitch High School is the sheer number of options we have for kids, but it also tends to work against us as well, I think, at a lot of times. Some other cases are we pit courses against each other, where you've got biology is a great example of this, where we have honors biology, which all of our sophomores have to take biology, and then there's AP biology, and then there's IB biology. So to take AP biology, kids have to take the honors biology sophomore year. So then they take the AP exam at the end of their junior year, and then it's only a select number of kids who are then going to continue on to that third year of biology, whereas IB biology could just be those 2 years. So Our sciences have that struggle where to take some of our IB sciences, you have to take 3 years of a science, and some of it's kind of unnecessary for that third year. Whereas our sports, exercise, health, science class, there are no prerequisites, and that's a course that thrives every single year. So perception, getting more kids to understand that the benefits of it, and teachers as well, and then getting. Again, some of my best friends at Fitch High School have been teaching there for 20 years and don't really understand or know what the program is. And it's such a small part, and even the teachers who do teach IB, it's such a small part of their schedule. It's maybe one class that they've got 6 classes, which is more than other districts around here. So everyone's got 6 classes. They've got a lot to worry about. So IB is just a small part of it. So in the past, it's always fallen on Kelly Donovan and previous coordinators. And I remember when I was a teacher and I would see Kelly frantically running around like the house was on fire. I was like, why is she so stressed out? This is like. And then, so Kelly and I talk regularly, and every time I was like, Kelly, I appreciate you so much right now. Like, any misconceptions I had before, I am so sorry about it. So I think it's deciding as a district, a school and as a district, what the ultimate goal is, because I think it was Kelly trying to drive things for a while, and now I'm doing it. And we are only one person, like Susan always says, expanding that circle of friends. It's if one person really wants the IB diploma program to succeed, that's tough, because when I'm going out and talking about the IB program, there are some teachers who feel threatened by that, because like if a kid's taking IB English, they are inherently not taking AP English. So there becomes this kind of turf war that happens that is counterproductive as well. So figuring out how to shift the culture, how these programs can work together, and are there places where we need to make sacrifices in the IB program or the AP program to make this a better experience for our students as a whole? Do we need? Again, look, a lot of it I didn't really appreciate what our program of studies was like until this past year. I'd never looked at our program of studies because that just wasn't my job. I was an English teacher. But now that I've gotten to peek behind the curtain and see how things work, I think it's tough to try to make a schedule for a kid when there's all these different options and in 10th, like I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was in 10th grade, so trying to figure out what my path forward is going to be. And that's one of the things I really like about IB is it gives structure, it gives goals, it gives timelines for kids to work with. And that's something I think a lot of our kids lack and struggle with, is they don't really know what to do. They're like, I want to kind of little this and a little that, but I don't really know what I want to do. Whereas when you enter into the diploma program or the career-related program, it can really help focus kids. So trying to get that message going forward as well.
And how do you see the school board helping you?
Let's see here. Really, in my dream scenario is that the district decides that we really see value in the diploma program and the career-related program, and not just for this handful of kids, the 10, 12 kids who go through the full diploma program every single year. And hopefully, like next year, I think we have 14 or 15 kids in the career-related program next year. But that this is something that is beneficial for everybody. The diploma program, I truly believe any kid whose plan is to go to a 4-year college after high school, the diploma program is the best thing we have to prepare them for that. So setting that as a school-wide, district-wide goal that we believe in this program. We've talked to the kids who've gone through the program. We've talked to the parents who have had students who've gone through this program, and we know that this works, and that we have the evidence that this is a thing that works, and we want to make this happen. So how do we do that? Because I go, I'm on the outside looking in from the scheduling. I get some updates from guidance about what's going on there. But in terms of what courses we run, what prerequisites we have for certain courses, a lot of that decision making is dispersed, which is good in some respects, but it also in my opinion, there's not really clear direction. It's oftentimes left up to the students what they want to do, and that's why we end up with this, I feel like, this hodgepodge of courses in the program of studies and these programs working against each other at odds. So a dictate from on high that this is what we want Fitch High School to look like. We made the vision of the graduate years ago. How do we get there? And I think, in my eyes, the IB diploma is the surest path forward to get there. That when I talk to parents and I talk to the 10th graders, I say, I can't guarantee you a lot of things in life, but I will guarantee you, if you do the IB diploma program, you're ready for college. Whether you get the diploma or not, if you go through the program, you are ready. There's zero doubt in my mind. So but that message comes from me. It doesn't really come from anybody else, at least to the students. So if the entire district believed in that and decided that this is the way we want to move forward, then having that messaging coming from higher up, I think would be incredibly powerful.
Okay, thank you.
You have a lot of support from your superintendent.
I know.
I'm a believer.
Any other questions? Matthew?
I'd like to wait until after I hear the kids. I want to see what they can teach me first.
I just wanted you to know that I was home tonight. I was staying home. I told Adrian I was staying home. He usually drives me here. But I thought, they're going to talk about IB. And then I started watching. And then I realized that there were parents here and kids here and staff here that I didn't realize was going to be here. So I got in my car and I came because I can't tell you how much I support the thing that bothers me about what you said is the division in the staff. And I think that's the thing that we have to address. I don't know as a board, but that's the thing that has to be addressed. And I know I'm at the Coast Guard Academy in the Writing Center, and a lot of times I'll say to a cadet, "How do you know this?" Or, how did you know how to approach this? And the answer will be, I was in IB. And I know that our Martin Luther King scholars who have been who are in IB or have been in IB, that program opens a path to them for acceptance into college, and I might add, money.
After the students talk and their parents, can you talk more about the course offerings and what we can do so it's a little better?
Sure.
Okay. Mike?
Thanks. I'll save most of my questions for after all that. But one thing you mentioned was the numbers in your, I think is it the 12th grade IB high level, it was 20-something right now, and then you've got 40-something enrolled next year. Is that across those two grades, 11 and 12, or is it double?
It's so... Oh.
Sorry.
Hold on.
Feedback.
Yeah. I was speaking to the literature class. So I teach the 12th grade literature class. We have 21 students enrolled this year. There's 25 juniors, but next year there will be 44 juniors. So there'll be 44 kids in the 11th grade next year.
Okay, so the 11th grade next year, if they're all seated, will double in size? Is that?
Roughly, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Kamita? Are you saying anything?
I'm not, I'm just here for support.
Okay.
I do want to
She
say,
could say
though,
a few things.
I can, right, because I did teach IB in the Social Studies Department. So I taught IB of Americas and World History. And the aspect of IB that I really like the most, including all the skill building and researching and writing and communication, I like the international aspect. When we taught the social studies in the Social Studies Department, we taught current events, whether it was about South Africa or China or NGOs or international government. So the students, and I read some of those testimonials, those students spoke to the international, the diverse, the being able to acclimate and already become familiar with the students wherever they went. So I think in the IB program, the students are more comfortable. They become more comfortable. I do like AP because I did teach that as well. But AP, we have a goal at the end. You know, with the IB, it's more of a survey class where we are more relaxed about it, enjoy it, can have discussions, and have discussions for days even. So I think not only is the skill building important, but the international learning about our world and just not our local government or national government.
That's a good point.
So where would you like to go from here? Would you like to have some students come up?
I would love to. We got some students
Yeah.
and parents here. We got I see some former students on the Zoom as well.
I'd love for the ones sitting in the audience to start now. And we can just, Carmita, just hand him over your microphone and we can hear him.
I'm Charlie Cotto, and I'm currently a junior in the IB diploma program, and I wasn't planning on talking.
Charlie, that means I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. I wasn't planning on talking. I was here just to support, but I think like the IB diploma program did a lot for me, because in my 10th grade year, I wasn't really in any AP classes or any honors classes really, and I kind of took a risk to fill my whole schedule with IB and AP classes this year. And the things that I've learned like while taking these classes are so much like better than the education I've gotten at like in my 9th grade and 10th grade years, because I feel like it really prepares me for college and even like beyond college, like for just life. Like the education that I was getting at, like in my 9th grade year, I went to Marine Science High School, and I feel like the IB diploma program, all the classes and the teachers that teach those classes, like really support me, and honestly, like I feel like the education is just more than I've ever gotten anywhere else, and I can feel like the quality of, you know, the teaching and the lessons that I've gotten. And also, like all of the teachers, like Mr. Morth and Dr. Verbotnik, are some of my favorite teachers. Like they really want to help and they care about the students, which I feel like is very important for like how I feel. And also, like going through the program, it's like I can feel myself being more prepared for college than, for example, in my 10th grade year. And like I just think it's really important that it keeps going. And another thing is, for example, me who didn't take any AP classes, like I took a really big risk and I was really nervous to like enroll in all of these IB classes, but I think like at Fitch, people are like nervous to, you know, enroll in these classes, and I feel like that's a big reason like why they don't sign up for the program. But it's really just, it's not really about like an education or like how hard the tests are. It's about like how prepared you'll be, and I think the IB diploma program does a really good job at like doing that. So That's it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, can somebody ask you a question?
Oh, yeah.
Charlie. If you ever watch any of these, I always ask a
Yeah,
question.
Jen.
You need to turn it on.
So Charlie, what inspired you to sign up for the classes in 11th grade? Was it like a mentor, or you just heard about the program? Just trying to get an understanding from an outreach perspective, if like what we can do to support.
I think there was really, there wasn't really a big reason that I decided to like just take a big leap in my academics, but Mr. Morth was actually, I really liked what he had to say about the program, and I was just kind of like, I felt like taking the risk, and I feel like it really paid off. It's because especially like the people that I've met like in the program are like my best friends, and I really am glad that I decided to enroll.
Great, thank you.
We are too.
And Mom is too. Mom, do you want to say anything?
Thank you.
Nothing like putting you on the spot.
Please ignore that these are, I'm a little shorter than my son. Ignore the gas station receipt. I kind of forgot about this, so I had to make some notes quickly in the car. But first, I think this is more than that I've heard from my son if you combined all of our conversations right here. So I know he's very passionate about this, and he said, tonight, please, Mom, come. This is important. When he was in middle school, well, first I should say I'm a Fitch graduate, and Charlie's a fourth generation, will be a fourth generation Fitch graduate. But when he was in middle school, I felt like he needed more of a challenge, and so we put him in the lottery for a local magnet school that's rated very highly in the state, and he got in, and we were thrilled. And then we realized that diversity is really important too, and especially for students of color. And I think that this is really a gem, this program, where kids get the best of both worlds. I feel very lucky that I went to Fitch and I was exposed to a lot of diversity, and so I'm really glad that he has the experience for both of those things, to be exposed to diverse students and to have a really high quality education. I also think we can all agree right now that some of the skills that you learn in the IB diploma are really important, including critical thinking and the ability to talk to people that have differing ideas in a respectful way. I'm still working on that. Sometimes it's a little irritating when my child can be more regulated in a heated discussion. But I really credit this program for him being able to stay cool and calm and collected and explain things in a way that's respectful, even when he doesn't agree. I also think that, like he said, that he's really prepared for college and he's passionate about what he's learning, and I just think that's a beautiful thing. I don't know if all of us can say that we felt empowered by our education, really happy to be learning, really invested in being a lifelong learner, and I do see that in him. I'm jealous. I wish we could all be in theory of knowledge. Sometimes that's our dinner conversation. What did you learn about today in theory of knowledge? And we all have like these really rich discussions at home. And I do think I've listened to some of your meetings, and I really do understand that right now there are kids struggling, and that I can understand why we would want to put a lot of resources towards that. And I do think that's important, but I think both things are important. We need to work on the future and the possibility for all of these kids, and also work on getting everyone caught up to where they should be. So that's all I wanted to share today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, anyone online that would
We've
like to
got,
speak?
we have a couple more people in person. Mr. O'Clair and Mr. Carney over here.
Hi, my name's Tanner. I went to Fitch about 6-7 years ago. I was lucky to have Mr. Morth as an English teacher for, I think, 3 of the years, maybe 2. I want to preface this by saying that I did the IB diploma program and I did not get the diploma, and I wholeheartedly recommend you take it. And I think part of the stigma as to why a lot of people are scared of the IB program is that for a lot of people it's posed in a way that says this will prepare you for college. And although that's true, I think a lot of kids look at that and say, oh, well, I don't want to go to college. Why would I do that? And I don't think that, and although we do offer the career program now, and it's very small, it wasn't offered when I was there, but in reality, and I think he mentioned this as well, that it's not about setting you up for college, it's about setting you up for life. I don't think we should be telling kids that this is how you go to college and this is the way you get there. It should be for everyone. I think Mr. Morth will agree to this statement. Theory of knowledge, every student everywhere should be taking theory of knowledge. No, like trying to figure out why do we know the things we do and how do we go about addressing those things when two people disagree. And that is the entire course. And I think in today's day and age, that's one of the most important things that people don't know how to do, is to converse with someone you disagree with. And Mr. Morth heard the arguments and shouting that I partook in with the other kids in the class. But I think that's healthy and important. And especially when you're doing it in a situation that's controlled, like a classroom, you can actually have, say, Mr. Morth, I was like, all right, this is getting a little bit too heated. Let's stop. Let's stop here, and we'll address it later. On top of that, I think that as it pertains to like getting people ready and getting people wanting and ready to do the high school diploma and the high school program is to get the middle years program involved for the middle schoolers to actually want to say, hey, this was really awesome middle school. I want to keep doing that when I go to college. Or sorry, when I go through high school. I want to continue to do that. And part of that actually is, I'm not really familiar with the process and the middle school program, but I know that the community service project, though kind of looked at as an aside to the diploma, is extremely important, not only for kids to get involved in the community, it just happens to be ours, which is great, but for everyone, saying, people don't understand that, doing community service not only is a great thing, but it can feel awesome. If you've never done that or been given the opportunity to go out and actually help your community and have an impact, you wouldn't know that. And this really puts you in a position, even in the middle years program, to go out there and actually do something within your community. And the CAST project really does that. It says, hey, go find something you can do to help the community, and that's going to be not part of your grade, but that's part of the diploma process. Have an impact, do something good, and I think that's where it kind of switches from not necessarily preparing you for college, though it definitely does that. And I actually could have taken credit for 3 or 4 classes. I chose not to. The only credit I took was actually English, because it wasn't related to the field I was going into, and it was a gen ed class that I felt I wasn't necessarily entirely needed to retake. But calculus, physics, and other sciences, I could have taken credit, and I didn't. And I think that was actually extremely intelligent. It was a really smart decision on my part, because not only was I extra prepared for taking those classes when I got to college, but I also could help others gain actually a better understanding of the base information. Because what people don't understand is that the most important years for like college as it pertains to the sciences, and I might be wrong in engineering, but if you don't have a great core understanding of the basic math, the basic sciences, if you don't actually have a core understanding of those things, you will struggle junior and senior year. And for me, having taken calculus 2 and 1 twice by the time I was a freshman in college, I was so well prepared. College wasn't a breeze, but I could see in others at the college that they were struggling more than I was, directly related to the experiences I had while at IB. And I didn't get the diploma. I did not pass the diploma. Very close. Wasn't happy about that. But
It was still worthwhile.
100%, without a doubt.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
For coming out tonight.
Mr. Carney, would you like to?
I'm Stephen Carney. My wife and I sent 3 daughters through the Groton Public Schools. They all finished with the IB program. All were full diploma candidates and all did get their diploma. And that was 10 years ago, 6 years ago, and 4 years ago. My youngest is a senior in college right now. And my wife and I both walked away from the Groton Public School experience just so impressed and filled with gratitude And that's really why I'm here, just to be supportive of the program. My 3 daughters all went to college, all said they were extraordinarily well prepared. They met other students who had been in IB programs in other parts of the entire world, and they talked about the same books that they had read, and they were engaged. They were engaged as students and extraordinarily well prepared. My house, too, there was all kinds of discussions about theory of knowledge class, and we would hear about, I got to meet with Mr. Morth tomorrow, or Dr. Fabrotnik, and it was just a very enjoyable way to parent a kid. I had the experience also of being in lockdown during the pandemic when my youngest daughter was a junior in high school, and she'd come walking through the kitchen with the laptop, and I would hear Mr. Morse's English class, and I would find myself not doing my work and getting engaged in what was going on there. And
It did give you a window.
I think that its success is that it's interesting, and I defy anybody to meet an IB kid that they don't find interesting and likable. And it's a remarkable program with a great staff, and I think my daughters might speak. I'm not really sure, but we are just very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone online would like to speak? Oh, there it goes.
I see
I see Miss Carney. Okay, Miss Carney.
Hello.
Hello.
Video. Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm one of the daughters that my dad just referenced. So I graduated from Fitch in 2014. I was a full IB diploma student. I found it to be one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. I went on to study drama at NYU. And I think, as my dad mentioned, while I was at NYU, I was taking classes with people, and we were able to chat about how we actually took the exact same courses, despite growing up in literally opposite ends of the world. I work at NYU now, and I can say that one of the things that the school is really prioritizing is a global approach to education. So I think the fact that, IB is offers the Fitch High School students such a global approach and critical thinking, and really understanding the world from different perspectives, is something that really gives our students an edge. I also, from a financial point of view, I was able to save money because I was able to apply some of my credits to college. I graduated a semester early, so of course that's always a consideration. But I think overall, the value of IB is that it really prepares you to be able to have conversations. It's that Socratic method of teaching that I think is so valuable, and that was all of my college courses. So it really did. It taught you how to have debate, how to have discussions, and how to also kind of change your mind in the moment and be very reactive to things and proactive. And it also taught you, how to work hard. I regularly would say I think that actually my college courses were marginally easier than my time at Fitchwood. So, I think that overall it was just a really wonderful experience, and I certainly would encourage it. And to that end, if there are current students or upcoming students who ever, feel like they need advice from previous graduates of the program, I'm always happy to be an ear or offer advice. But yeah, that's I just think it's really wonderful, and I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I have a question. I'm sorry. What is it that you would recommend to the guidance department and the administration at Fitch to do to build this program, to encourage more students to do that?
Yeah, I think, what Mr. Morth said before, there's this sense that IB is kind of for the elite few. That was very much the case when I was a student. I found myself having to defend IB not only to my fellow students, but even sometimes to some other teachers. So I think just kind of having a much more cohesive approach to understanding why the program is so important would be really valuable. And again, just reminding everyone that it's not just about, of course it's wonderful and really prepares you well for college, but it really just prepares you to be a critical thinker and a global thinker, and that's just so necessary and important. But I would say unifying everyone of, that the IB, no one is, the IB is very much a part of Fitch High School and should be very much integrated into the school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
I think there was a couple other hands raised.
I saw Sam Mayalo's hand. I don't know where she went. Oh, there she is.
There, Sam.
Hello, everyone. I'm Smith Mayolo. I graduated from Fitch in 2021 as a full IB diploma recipient. And I feel, to this day, incredibly lucky for the education that I had from IB. IB truly helped set the foundation for a lot of the skills I use today, such as prioritization, organization, time management, balance. And when I started at UConn 3 years ago, having taken the English course with Mr. Moore for 2 years, I was able to take junior level English classes here as a freshman. So I was taking like Dante courses and Boccaccio. And now, fast forward to now, I'm a student teacher at East Hartford High School, where I teach Spanish at the public high school, not the IB school in East Hartford. But I teach my honors Spanish 3 and 4 classes in the same way that I learned IB Spanish with Senor Serio. So we're less focused on the mechanics of grammar and more focused on realistic situations and comprehensible input. And although IB was incredibly stressful, it was very worth it. And when I was done with the experience, I had some people asking if I would put my own children through IB one day, and I said without a doubt yes, because IB really made me become more globally minded and a kinder person, for sure.
Thank you.
Can I just mention something also? When I taught IB, all the exams and the writing, the essays, the extended essays, and the internal essays and the exams were left to your senior year. What I like about Mr. Moore's new plan is that he's scattering them throughout the 11th and 12th grade, so Sam is less stressful than how we do Sam.
Bite-sized pieces.
Right.
Not the whole thing.
Exactly. So Mr. Moore is making some changes, and I think they're going to be very effective and much more, doable for our students throughout the 2-year program.
How do we get you back to Groton?
Yes.
He's up for us for a few times, so we tried to get her back.
Any other questions? No. Anyone else online that would like to speak? Oh. Now here.
Is Mahi online?
Okay. Andre?
Yeah.
Andre, Saisha, and Nathan.
Okay. You could call him in.
All right. Aisha, I saw your hand first. Where'd she go?
Hi everyone, my name is Aisha Hashimi. I was a 2023 graduate at Fitch. I'm also a Dr. Martin Luther King Scholar, an Afro-IB kid, and I would like to say thank you so much to the IB program for giving me this title. I would say the IB program is such an amazing program. If anyone was telling me to do it again, I would do it 1,000 times, regardless of how many times I cried or stressed. Mr. Moore would know me as the quiet kid, but he would be shocked that actually I do speeches now, and I do story times. And that all is a thank you to Mr. Moore, because if you would force me to speak out loud in class, which I still hold that grudge. But it taught me to be a risk taker, it taught me to be open-minded, and I could list all the IB learner profile, which has helped me win multiple arguments against my siblings. But that is something I hold on and I cherish. Okay, So I was also an IB teacher assistant and a regular teacher assistant, so I can speak of like both worlds. I was with Ms. Donovan at that time, and as Mr. Moore said, yes, it was very hectic. Her office, it was like a headache to me, but it was like Ms. Donovan and I were the same person. I felt like if the connection between the non-IB and the IB teachers were together, it would make everything a little more smoother. I went to the IB program because I was told to not do it because it's too hard. So I wanted to experience it. So that was my first risk taking move, so I knew I was like, come on, I gotta do IB now because I fit the profile. And I was in shock that I was actually told that because it was something like we weren't really told. And I did a program, there was 4 of us, including myself, and we're all just we're really a small family, but it was such an amazing family where I can build all these amazing connections with my teachers and my peers. And I like to say that IB has like such high expectations for me because now I know what I want from my professors, I know what I want from my peers. I know how to do presentations without freaking out or getting nervous. I know how to be organized, and like it's like a new part of my brain opened up. Yes, there's like critically analyzing everything, but like I've had multiple professors. And I'm sorry. First, I'll say I'm a UConn sophomore, majoring in allied health sciences, with a concentration in health sciences, and a minor in molecular and cell biology, which is a mouthful. Oh my god! But it's so worth it because of the IB program. And multiple of my professors have always said, like, where have you learned to, like, critically analyze? Where have you learned to write? Where have you learned to keep your organized, like, behavior and your time management? And I always bring it back to the IB program. Because without this program, I would be a mess. I would not know how to be organized. I wouldn't know how to manage my time. And I wouldn't really know how to succeed. And now I am, like, thank God, I am doing amazing. Knock on wood. It's going great. I'm getting asked to do like speeches about UConn's connection and disconnection. I'm getting asked to talk to younger kids, volunteering as always, and IBs to help me like volunteer, like push me to volunteer because of the CAS. And I'm still volunteering with Afghan refugees, with students, and babysitting. But as an IBTA, I learned that Ms. Donovan's job is very hard. So good luck to Mr. Morth. You're doing amazing, but it is very hard. I used to help make all these packets and everything. But one thing I learned that I wish I also had was a senior, when I was a junior, a senior who would be an IB teacher assistant and be there to like voice out our concerns and be there to like, not be like a therapist, but like someone to like talk to you to. And I feel like that would be like amazing to help because I was a teacher assistant, so I created a group chat where everyone would be able to voice out their concerns, talk about their essays, and it was just an amazing way for everyone to get together and be able to like voice out their concerns. So I was able to learn like what was going wrong with the program during that time. And honestly, I'm so, like, if anyone ever told me to come speak at IB, I would always do it. Like, when Mr. Moore contacted me, I was very happy. I was like 100% yes, tell me what I need to do, and I'll do 100% more. Because that's what IB told me. IB told me don't fall for your minimum, always do your maximum and above. Like, don't just do the average. Be like more than you can, because that's the way you can be. Like, you don't have to stop at a limit. You can do more. So I want to say thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Mr. Moore and Dr. Eichmann.
Is there anything else you want to tell? One more thing?
One more thing she said.
One more thing?
Something.
You're an MLK scholar.
She said that. She said
Oh,
that.
did you say that?
Yeah,
I
she
didn't
did
hear
say
that.
that.
Oh,
Yeah.
my
I
goodness.
can never forget that. That is
Well, thank you. Thank you for
Yes.
your
Oh.
input.
Thank you.
Fabulous, yes.
All right, I think we got Andres and then Nathan, maybe? Andres, do you want to go? Here he is.
Hello. To all familiar faces in the crowd. I just graduated from Fitch last year. I'm a freshman at UConn now. And I had the pleasure of being a student of both Mr. Morth and Ms. Hodge for IB Theory of Knowledge and IB History of the Americas. And I actually didn't hear about IB until my mom asked me to do it in high school. So right when I started high school, she was like, you need to do this. You have to do this. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. Just stop bothering me. I ended up actually planning to do it since freshman year, even though I didn't know really what it was. So I agree with you more on the basis that reaching out to the parents is very important, because they often can sometimes see what students can't, and that can like help push the students to kind of enroll in the diploma program, which actually will be probably one of the best decisions they can make. About January last year, I received the Nutmeg Scholarship to UConn, which covers the total cost of attendance, so that's tuition and room and board. And I credit a lot of that scholarship to the IB program, because usually this scholarship is known as the valedictorian or the salutatorian scholarship. I heard that from a lot of people, and I somehow got it. I was not even ranked in the top 10 of my class. I was 14. I wish I had higher volunteering hours, but I didn't have enough. So I'm not really sure how I got it, but I credit a lot of it to my enrollment in the diploma program. And I met with a bunch of, the Scholars Collective of other people who received the Nutmeg and Day of Pride and Stamps Scholarship. And a lot of them were top of their class, number one. Number two, I actually met a salutatorian from New London who also received the MLK Scholarship. And she was, I forgot her name, unfortunately. This was like 3 months ago, but she was saying how she obviously wasn't IB because Fitch is the only IB school in this area, but she was saying how, like, I guess impressed that I got the scholarship, not even through anything, but because it's very rare, because I believe only 15 Nutmeg scholarships are given out to UConn applicants in the state of Connecticut, and 15 Day of Pride scholarships. So obviously it's very rare to get one of them, but I feel like IB was a big contributor to that. And not only was my involvement in the diploma program helped me stand out, but even the classes I took helped me. I took IB French standard level, and that actually helped me receive my, what's it called?
Seal of Biliteracy.
Seal of Biliteracy.
I talk about it all the time.
I had already received my Seal of Biliteracy in Spanish, and that class helped me receive my Seal of Biliteracy in French. Wow. So that really helped me as well stand out. Another big benefit to the IB program is all of my classes, one way or another, made my classes the last semester and this semester so easy. IB Math HL, we had a whole stats unit. This semester, I'm taking stats right now. I've already learned everything, so I got a solid A in the class right now. My IB Bio HL class, taught by Mr. Petra. I am taking Bio right now. I already learned everything in the class from IB Bio. Granted, it did take 3 years of Bio. IB English helped me a lot in my English class my fall semester. That Ms. Duncan was my teacher, and she actually helped me a lot because she reviewed my college essay, and that entire class just really kind of bolstered my writing skills in general. So that definitely helped me. So basically, all the classes I took in IB really made my learning and my success in my college classes a lot easier. And usually people get very overwhelmed their first semester and a half with school. I wasn't really overwhelmed because of how the IB program prepared me. I remember all my friends in the program, like a year ago, they were saying how hard it was, how difficult it was, how much they didn't want to do it, even though they were already doing it. And it was true, it was difficult, but I haven't had to do anything as hard since, mostly because that program prepared me. And I heard that someone who spoke said that Theory of Knowledge should be a class that every student should take. I completely agree with that, because especially in the current events in the world, the controversies, the political controversies, the social controversies, it's really important to understand other people's views, why they see the things they do, and kind of accept all perspectives. And that class just really teaches you that. And I think it's a very what's the word? It's very, I don't know the word, but it's very, it helps you see the bigger picture really. And what else was I going to say? If I had to improve anything about the diploma program, I would suggest that they add more classes, because I feel like with more classes, students are more inclined to enroll in the diploma. And I just wish that I knew about the diploma myself instead of having my mom to tell me about it. So all in all, it was probably one of the best decisions I made. It helped me with my academic success right now at UConn. And I actually would like to thank Mr. Moore and Ms. Hodge a lot for that opportunity that they gave me, and because they helped me succeed a lot.
Thank you. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a request.
Okay.
Will you track down that MLK scholar and have her contact me, Dr. Ackerman?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll put her name in the chat. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great.
Well, good luck to you at UConn.
Thank you.
All right. I see we have a whole family of Kowalskis here, but Nathan, do you want to talk?
Yeah, I unfortunately drew the short stick in talking to you guys today. Yeah, my family spent, I think, just about a decade in the IB program. Started with my brother Jacob. He was 11 to 15. Then I joined the program, was 15 to 19. And then finally my sister Hayden went through it. What was she, 13, 20 or something? I don't know. What were your years? 18, 20, something like that. And it set us up tremendously for life after high school. We all went to UConn, excelled there. Jacob went on to get a master's at RPI. He now works in California for Maxark Technologies. They do satellites and stuff. I'm down in DC. I work for Amtrak now. Went to UConn and got a master's at UConn. And Hayden is about to graduate this year with her undergrad from UConn. Physiology and neurobiology, and a double major in psychology. And they're actually messaging me right now. Jacob wants me to let you guys know that he also worked at NASA. Just another little flex there. But yeah, the IB program was so integral to our success after high school. I know, especially for me, I did a dual business engineering degree at UConn, and because I was in the School of Engineering, I had to do a major project at the end of my 4 years, and I know a lot of my classmates struggled to have that self-drive to manage a project of that magnitude, and because I'd already done it in high school through IB with the IAs, the science classes, you had to design your own experiment, perform the experiment, write about it, what would you change, how could you improve it. That all helped me tremendously. to then lead my senior design project my senior year. And I don't know. I don't want to bore you guys on things you've already heard from everybody earlier, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. We all wanted to be here to advocate for IB. IB is one of the things that kept us in Groton. Our mom commuted to Hartford every day, over an hour each direction, just so that we could stay in Groton and do the IB program. My parents felt that strongly about it, and hate to admit it, but they were right. It helped us so much. And like I said, be happy to answer any of your questions, but I don't want to take any more of your time repeating things that have been said so many times tonight.
Matthew?
Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you, each and every one of you who's spoken. I'm speaking to the students now, but thanks to the parents as well. I've understood you all to have said that you got so much out of this program, and that you all, as far as you've articulated, have felt that community service was a very important part of the program to you. So I'm going to offer, and I'm not speaking for the board in any way, just one member, can you imagine an IB Alumni Association that brings the message to our current students, that can bring the message of what the school system does to the general public who may or may not have kids in the system? Because we as adults, oh, you're the board, you're the advocates, oh, you've got a vested interest, you're a teacher. No, you don't have that vested interest. You don't have that weight that you're carrying. Is that something, I'd love to hear from a couple of you. You're the victim, Nathan, but you're used to that.
Yeah.
How does that strike you? How does that strike you?
I think that's a great idea. I know my family started an IB program early on, with my brother doing it, 15 years ago now. And there weren't many advocates outside of the teachers that were teaching it. Mrs. Donovan was a great ally for the program, but there was not a lot of communication to me in middle school about it. My first couple of years, because when I did it, it was just you did it kind of your junior and senior year. But you had to be prepared. There were certain classes that you had to take prerequisites for and stuff before you got there. And so I think having students that went through the program come back and communicate the benefits of it, these success stories of IB, not to pat myself on the back and call myself a success story, but I think that'd be awesome, and I'd definitely love to be a part of it.
So, with no authority whatsoever, I give you a field promotion to visit with your colleagues and see what suggestions ideas you can come up with, and bring them back
To Mr. Moore.
To Ms. Moore and Carmita.
Awesome. Thank you for the promotion.
Anyone else online? Let me see. Wants to speak?
I think that might be it.
That's it.
Thank you all. This
Yeah,
was really
thank
a
you.
testimony. And I'm so proud of all that you all have accomplished as well.
Now, Jen, did you get your question answered?
From the students, yes, because I know they were going to support it, but I do want to understand, the plan to grow it. I know you're just starting, so I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire at this point, but definitely, and I know, with Anne Marie's help coming from a district where IB and Carmita, right? So you have great support, and these two, and of course Susan, right? But trying to just make sure, because some of the concerns that, as you've heard during the budget process, is that the numbers, right? With a limited resource, or a finite resource pool, we need to do what is best for the district. As you know, I started off saying I'm an advocate for it. I'm just repeating what was said throughout the budget cycle. So definitely want to see like how we're going to incorporate the middle school, growing this program, making sure that people like yourself are going to be those risk takers who are going to say, yes, I am going to take a chance. And it's not just, as like a couple people mentioned, that it's an elitist type of program, that it's open to anyone and everyone who is willing to do the work. So maybe like 6 months, I don't know how long, maybe come back. I'd love to have you guys come back, let us know where you are. I know you said it was just the finishing of the enrollment process where we have 20 and then 41, and just trying to see, because that was just English, how about all the other classes? Would love to hear, even if it's not like all these testimonies, but just a quick feedback from the team to tell us how it's, what's going on.
I can actually add to that and segue to the next bullet.
Okay.
Because one of the things that we know to be true is we've had students who've paid a per pupil expenditure. Their families have, had that cost. I think there's been at least 5 who have been part of the IB diploma program, and they've signed up from Westerly to Stonington to around. So one of the things I talked about, especially since Anne Marie has come from her expertise at CREC and her expertise in East Hartford, where there's another amazing school, and one of our students mentioned, there's nobody else like this around. So how could we share? And we know that inter-district magnets are now something that can be done again. That at one point, there was a moratorium on them and you couldn't apply. So we have been in conversation with the State Department of Ed, and Beverly actually joined us. And we spoke to really the person who's in charge of the inter-district magnets and what we'd have to do. And basically, there's an application process. We really have to talk to the board and see if this is something you'd want to entertain, gather all the information. Anne Marie has had experiences putting these plans together, but basically you have to have 25% of the student population. So let's say you have 100 eventually in the 11-12 program. You also have everybody taking the MYP program. So someone could come in as a freshman, do the MYP in 9 and 10, and then be part of either the diploma program or the careers program. So both programs put together. And even at 25 per class, let's say, 25 kids per class, that would be a source of revenue of $2 million or more coming from the State Department, which pays 48%, and we pay the rest. We pay and the districts would pay. So you'd have to have some kind of an MOU process with the others. But New London has an all-magnet system. Learn has a magnet school right in Groton. And it seems like an international baccalaureate, with 2 different kinds of programs, would be really something that the rest of this southeastern Connecticut community may really want to take advantage of. And with only a few, 25 kids to each class, I know that we can grow those numbers. So it's something we're really interested in, but we want to find out more. We really want to see, I think Norwalk is one of the schools that has a similar program like this, a program within a school. And I think they have IB, and I don't know if their IB program is intra-district or inter-district.
I believe it is intra and inter-district.
Both.
Yes.
Because they have 2 high schools. So it's something we're really going to explore, and I just think it would, of course, widen our circles of friends. That's what we're looking for. And I think it would also encourage, there's a lot of things going on right now where friends are telling friends, and I think even having testimony like this and getting this published and out there, so other students and learning, MYP now is for all kids when they enter 6th grade. So to understand those attributes and have that rich coursework in STEAM, all the STEAM activities that you have, the Project Lead the Ways in middle school and that kind of thing, certainly will encourage the kids with the engagement aspect of it.
And I'd just like to supplement some of the information that the superintendent just spoke about by saying that I obviously, when you're going to expand a program, you worry about the costs and the financial implications, but the IB World Organization actually offers a grant for programs that are either starting up or expanding. And I've applied for and secured that grant before in both of my former districts. And I think that I can lend my experience, if we decided to move forward in this direction, lend my experience with grant writing, obviously working with Shannon Wagle, and apply for that grant again and hope to secure that. They are either 1 or 2 year grants that you're awarded and help assist with growing the program. Unless, of course, Fitch has already received this grant, in which case we may not be eligible.
I don't know of any grants.
What's the name of the grant?
I think it's just called the IB Startup Grant, but let me look at it here. I just pulled it up.
I think it would be sustainable, though, if we're working with the state and other districts to support.
Does not have an official name, but it's right on the IB website. I just Googled, because I remembered applying for this grant, so I Googled I think IB grant, and this is what came up. It's due in April of every year, so we wouldn't apply, I don't believe, this year, but probably next year this time.
Thank you. Any other? Mike, do you have a question? Mike?
Is he muted?
I don't know. I guess not. Matthew?
Well, I said I wanted to wait until the end. There are just a couple of observations that might be helpful. I know, I understood you, Chris, to have said that it took you a number of years actually in the program before you reached a fuller understanding of its dynamics. And so I guess one element I'm wondering if you're considering is incorporating some PD, not only for those who are teaching within the program, but some general PD to familiarize the entire faculty with the program so that they are able to be supportive of the kids even if they're not direct participants in the teaching. We talked about the alumni. I did not hear you guys discuss today the career path very much. So I'm hoping that when you come back, you can give us a broader picture about that as well. When you listed the things of overcoming self-induced roadblocks, my words, not yours, I tried to capture the sense of it, you identified, we didn't hear tonight, and it's premature, I want to hear the strategy, and I want to hear how we're going to implement the strategy. But you've definitely done the first thing, at least the first thing. You may have already done the others that we just haven't heard about. Aisha mentioned it would be, at least I think she did, that it would be very nice if an 11th grade student coming into the program she did not use the word mentor, but a fellow student mentor. I think that's a splendid idea. We do that for teachers, nurses do that in hospitals, whatever you want to label it. I think taking a little brother, little sister under your wing will help with the transition. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? You all set? You don't want to say anything?
I'm after Adrian.
Adrian, okay.
All right. I've kind of touched on this before, but how effective is the program at reaching economically diverse populations? So like high-needs students, how many or what percentage of the kids, I mean, like over half of our kids are high needs, right, at Fitch? What percentage of those kids end up in the IB diploma program?
So that's, I can speak to the diversity. I don't have access to, I don't know anyone's financial situations in the program. I only know like the kids that show up in my class, and I think they're very representative of the diversity of Fitch High School. But I can't speak to I don't know anything about anybody's economic situations.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that, there's probably very few people that should have that access, but I'm wondering if, just statistically, if there's ways of getting that information. I know there was talk on that we get reimbursed for AP tests based on economic, income or
we did,
based. So I'm curious. I mean, it seems like that stuff's available somewhere.
But I'm sure. I don't have access to that either right now, but I'm sure we can get those numbers.
Yeah.
But like Chris, when I taught it years ago, I wasn't too much aware of the economic diversity of my class, but definitely it was diverse in other aspects, whether it was learning, abilities or racial or religious, differences. So, yeah, I think that's one of the benefits of all of our classes, but particularly the IB class.
I'll move on. So, are the plan? I mean, what you're hoping? I mean, it's something like 19 or 18 AP offerings, and I think there's a little over 30 IB offerings. Is your plan to reduce the AP offerings and kind of force kids into IB? Or are we still?
Well, I don't have a personal plan. I don't have the power, unfortunately. If I could, I don't. It's really. That's one of the reasons I really was looking forward to coming tonight, is getting a feel for what the district wants, because at Fitch High School, that's kind of the lens I view. I see what goes on at Fitch High School, and there are these different little kingdoms in Fitch High School, and everybody wants something different, and a lot of people are just kind of, and then at the administrative level, there's just like so many fires been putting out all the time that I don't think a cohesive strategy really exists right now. And I would hope, my kind of next hope would be to figure out, well, what is that strategy? And then figure out, because there's the IB for all strategy. Some districts that I've talked to, every kid takes, there's a school in Rhode Island that every kid takes theory of knowledge. That's just a class that everybody takes. Or a lot of districts will do IB English or IB History for all, that every kid who goes to the school takes an IB class. So that's the measure we could go down. We could try to, so in terms of the AP IB things, one of the things I was talking about is looking at, and again, I don't want to speak about the AP classes. I don't teach the AP classes, but some of our AP classes, if a kid's getting UConn credit, so biology is a great example of this. If a kid takes biology and they're getting the UConn credit, does the AP credit really matter? Is that if they're already getting the UConn credit, why are we attaching the AP credit to it? So again, because I see the value in the IB, I don't know about the AP, but maybe looking through our course catalog and identifying, are there places where we're running these classes side by side in competition, or they're taking away from one another, or they're forcing us to make other scheduling decisions in order to try to make this work? Should this class just be an AP class? Should we only offer AP chemistry and then only have IB biology? Should we be separating these two things? Do we want to continue with the hybrid approach? There's so many different routes we could take with it, and I don't know what all of the stakeholders like. If I could wave my magic wand, I would be a completely IB district from head to toe and just have everyone do the IB diploma and career-related program. That's probably not the most realistic thing on the planet, because there are all these other needs and other people want certain things. So trying to figure out what that is, and then what are the goals for that? How do we make that? How do we work that going forward?
All right.
And we've done a lot with the dual credit, where we can get UConn credit and AP, and even looking at IB with ECE, or, trying to see where we can marry some of these things so that they get the diploma and they get the credit. But in a lot of schools, just bringing the diploma to the table is credit. You do advance.
And this is speaking to those little kingdoms. The English department is a great example of this, where the UConn class has been tied to AP for so long, even though the UConn curriculum and the AP curriculum really have nothing to do with each other. They are just, that class was assigned to the UConn class was attached to AP years ago, and it's been that way. I've talked with the AP teachers, and they're like, AP and UConn don't fit together. And Ms. Kelly Donovan, tried to get UConn attached to the IB IB course 8 or 9 years ago, and was told that she couldn't do that. And I just kind of took that as gospel. And then this past year, we had a grant through the school about getting more UConn offerings at our school. So I started investigating it, and I read the UConn curriculums. I was like, UConn and everything that UConn wants is what IB is. So Jess Dunnican, one of our English teachers who also teaches IB, she took the rhetoric course this past summer that UConn required, and they immediately approved her for that. So now our English class, or the English class that she teaches, is now a UConn course.
Right.
But that's one of those things that
UConn IB.
The IB course. So 8 or 9 years ago, who knows? It's hard to tell with some of these numbers. Like, would the there's the number of kids taking AP English, would that have shifted to IB years ago? How many kids were taking AP English because it had the UConn name next to it? I suspect it's probably quite a few. So again, like those little intra program barriers and things have really become are really problematic, and trying to find ways to eliminate those.
Do you see more colleges giving credit for IB?
That's another thing that's changed a lot as well. I think 15 years ago when I started, that was always one of the knocks, was that AP, with the power of the College Board and its ubiquity behind it, was more widely accepted at colleges. And that is by and large not true anymore. And it's actually, like, UConn's a great example of a school that has swung in the other direction. Now, UConn really values the IB diploma, that they will, a lot of schools will give you college credit for your higher level classes, but schools like UConn, if you do the full diploma, they'll also give you college credit for your standard level classes as well. So we had a student, Ava Otano, who graduated a few years ago and went to UConn with 34, 36 credits, something incredible. Like, she just kind of knocked it out of the park with all of her all of her IB diploma classes, and had a couple of AP classes in there as well. So I think almost any school that offers AP credit recognizes IB now as well, but that probably wasn't true when a lot of the perception of IB was being formed in the early 2000s, and that has lingered for the last 20 years.
Yeah, because I noticed in one of the letters that we received, one of the students said her school, I think it was Brown, but I'm not. Georgetown? Was it Georgetown?
No, so there was Noelle Butler went to Ithaca, and I know she struggled with this 10 years ago. So I think that was a more common issue 10, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. But by and large, when I was getting my presentation ready to give to the sophomores, every school that I looked at that our students commonly go to, if they give AP credits, they were also giving IB.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I'm not done yet. That's all right.
How many more you have?
Couple.
Can you do one more, and then we get Mike, because we have to go to Mr. Frost, too, because he's here waiting.
All right, well, I did a little research on that today. So on what I assume that our kids go to, so Eastern Connecticut, Central Connecticut, URI, UMass, UNH, they all take the high-level classes. UConn is the only one that I found that took standard-level classes if you get the diploma. And one thing I did notice that was a change from this year, from when I looked at it last year, was UConn started offering 8 credits for some of those hard classes, which I believe you would take a 2-year IB class and only get 4 credits for it. And they switched that. At least that's what it was today. So that's great to hear that that now at least kids that take IB are getting a fair amount of classes versus kids that are taking an AP class. That being said, some of the better experiences that we're having with IB, I have to feel might be related to very small class sizes in our most experienced teachers teaching these students. So, I mean, I was never in an IB class, but our average class size is like 11, and it's our most experienced teachers, right, for the most part, that are teaching those harder level classes. Is that a fair?
I don't think so. I'm thinking of a teacher who just started 1 or 2 years ago, and he's teaching an IB class.
But there is training that goes, specific training.
Yeah. And it's really good training.
It's really good.
I applaud, IB's training. It's really good.
Yeah,
that's what.
They're not. Yeah.
The workshops, the IB workshop that I went to for English in particular when I started years ago, and I mean the English classes are fairly large. Like I average 20 to 22 kids in the English classes, in the theory of knowledge classes, but the workshops I found to be incredibly valuable. And one of the big things was speaking with teachers from other parts of the country about their experiences, and then I find IB training to be so invigorating and so interesting, and the nature of the curriculum, it challenges you as a teacher in a way that I've talked to some of the, again, about like AP, like here, this is the curriculum that you need to get to, this is the amount of content that you need to get to, and it's very much set in stone, whereas IB gives a lot of leeway to the teacher to decide what topics do you want to dive into, what topics do you want to explore. So I end up teaching things that I think I'm very passionate about, and I think that's probably a more common experience in an IB classroom. So I think that's more so, I'm sure some of the small class sizes might have something to do with it, but I do think that the ability from the teacher has a lot more agency. Like I know in the history classes, you get to choose which eras of history that you really want to dive in deep on versus like an AP US history class where it's like, all right, we start in 1492 and you've got to get to 1985 and you've got 6 months to do it.
To modern civilization.
And just U.S. history, right? But I just want to clarify in saying that some of our newer teachers to Groton Public Schools who may have taught less than 10 years or 6 years are teaching IB versus our teachers who've been teaching for 20 years are teaching IB. So it runs the gamut from teachers who just started teaching and had the training through teachers who've been teaching for 20, 25 years in our schools teaching IB.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Dr.
Well, thank you.
Ackerman?
Can I just finish one last thing?
No, let her go, and then move on. And we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Because we had Mr. Frost, he was here.
I just wanted to pick up on something that the last young man who spoke said, and that was that he was interested in getting together the alumni. And I'm wondering if the young people who are here are interested in contacting him and getting yourselves involved in that, because I know that would be something that would be extremely beneficial for the young people. And I'm wondering if, two things, if the high school could pursue that as well, particularly with that young man, because he said he wanted to do that. And the other thing is, when you do kind of an initiation, if that's the word, I don't know, but an introduction to IB, if you could show the testimony of the people that we heard from tonight, I think that would be extremely invigorating for the and I mean everybody, not just, oh, well, I think you'd look good in IB or do good in IB. I keep saying IV, I don't know why, but anyway, everybody should see that. Okay, you hear me? Janie Presley, you hear me?
Ian?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate everyone coming out tonight, all the students, the parents, and the staff, and it's been really informative. As anyone that's reviewed the budget session will probably know, I do have my concerns, mostly having to do with like class sizes and allocation of resources. So as I believe Mr. Morth was discussing, looking at an overall cohesive plan of how to best kind of create a great holistic approach that could be maybe more inclusive and in a way that the programs could be integrated into the school in a more cohesive fashion, I guess, and in a way that also kind of best allocates our resources. I think I'd be glad to be part of that conversation moving forward in cooperation with district admins and the staff that deliver the material, as well as students and the parents that are looking to participate. So I just want to thank everyone again, and I look forward to working on this issue in the future.
Thanks, Ian. Mike?
Thank you,
Thank you. So I've just got a couple questions, but one of them was, I think you mentioned about UConn, for instance, giving a lot of credit for those who earn the IB diploma. how many students try for that each year, like in the last 2 years, and how many have actually gotten it? I think it's like 2 or 3.
Now, last year we had, I think, 11 or 12 students who were diploma candidates, and 7 or 8 of them received the diploma. Prior to that, this is my first year in charge of the program, so I don't have the numbers from before that. But last year it was 7 or 8 out of 11 or 12. There were 4 students who did not get the diploma. Two were very, very close. They missed it by a point.
Okay. And then, as you talk about being an IB diploma, enrolled in an IB diploma program in high school, is there more? Was there, say, last year more than 11 or 12 that were enrolled and just didn't try for the diploma, or was that the cohort period?
I believe that there was, again, this was slightly before my time, I believe that there was a few more students who had started the diploma program in 11th grade and then did not continue it into 12th grade. But those are just the students who are doing the full diploma. They're doing the 6 classes, they're doing the theory of knowledge class, they're doing the extended essay, they're doing the CAS. There are many other students we call course students who are taking IB courses. They may be taking 1 IB course. We have some kids who take 5 IB courses but don't actually do the full diploma. I still can't wrap my head around some of those. But yeah, that's what I know about the numbers of the candidates versus kids who have completed the program.
Thanks. And then, for the students that aren't going for the diploma, what colleges take for credit, my understanding is those higher level ones. That's kind of more or less like NAP credit. If you score a certain level on a test, you get in, or you get credit for that. Then, is that test, like for a single class, say higher level English 12, right? Do they have to pass a test to, like, kind of akin to an AP test to get a level high enough to that college would earn credit? Did I say you earn credit for that?
Works a little bit differently. So for AP Literature, AP Language, you have a 3-hour, 1-day exam. It's about half multiple choice, half short essay in May. For the IB Literature, it's actually based on 4 different assessments. We have the HL essay, which is a literary analysis essay that the students write. They go through the drafting process with the teacher, with peer feedback. We spend a month and a half, 2 months working on that, and then they get to turn in a final draft their senior year that they turn in. Another 25% is the individual oral, where they give a 10-minute oral presentation with a 5-minute question and answer period with the teacher afterwards. That gets recorded, scored, and sent to IB. And then they have 2 days of the English literature exam that are similar to the writing part of the AP exam, but there's more time, more depth to them. So it's nice for a lot of kids who, I was a really good test taker in high school, and it's one of the things that helped me with my AP exams. But the IB takes a much more holistic approach to it, and maybe you're not the world's greatest test taker, but you can work with your teacher through and improve your essay in this drafting process, and you have good communicative skills through the individual oral. You might be able to make up for a shortcoming you have in one other area. So it's not a single data point. It's for all the IB classes, it's at least 3 or 4 data points that their IB scores are based on.
Thank you for that detail. And so for an AP class, for instance, many students would probably do quite well in the class, and then they come to take that AP test at the end of the year, and some of them will do quite well in that. Some of them would get a lower score, and that test itself is an external evaluation. And as you explained just now, for instance, for the class you're talking about, there's an internal sort of high school evaluation component and an external one. Is there a lower portion of students passing the external part of things than the internal one, or is it kind of all wrapped together?
I mean, I can speak to the English part of things, and I know that the years I've been teaching it, there's certain assessments that we've done very, very well on. Like my students and again, some of this is just maybe teaching style or just luck of the draw with the students I've had, is that we've done very well with the individual oral, that part, and then the paper 2 exam, which is where students, they have an hour and 45 minutes. They have 4 questions to choose from. They choose 2 books that they have read that we've read together and discussed in class, and they have to answer that question using both of those books. Those are 2 assessments that my classes personally have done very, very well on. And with the other 2 assessments we've done well on them, but those are the 2 ones that really stand out. So I don't know how things have gone in any of the other classes or Ms. Dunnigan's English classes, but so for me, those are the ones that we have been particularly strong on. I don't know, and I don't know if that's me or the students that I've had.
Or a combination.
Or a combination of the 2. But it's become a pattern over the last 7 or 8 years, so.
Well, thanks. That's great to hear, actually. And then my other question is just one question. Probably was not answered yet.
This is your last question, then I have to go back to Adrian.
Beth, this is my real last question.
Okay.
And it's just this, on a programmatic level, can we seek to figure out the most efficient way to still offer complete diploma? I'm bothered by the number of courses that we have listed for IB, and I think, and it's been said before, maybe we can do it with less of a variety. And I'm talking about for the IB diploma at the high school level, what's the minimum number of courses we could do to still offer this program, but then still have resources left over for other levels, like AP, for instance, for English, and maybe someday an honors English offering for 11th and 12th grade. Thanks.
No, I agree. That's one of the things that I've been talking with Principal Brown about, is how, again, our program of studies, we spread everything so thin, and I was having this discussion with, so I've been working with the career pathways at Fitch High School, and that's another thing that we want to offer everything to everybody all the time. And one of the points I made with the career-related program is that we should focus on the career-related studies that we do really, really well, and that have a lot of, that are super meaningful, and we provide a great experience for kids, and expand upon those. And I think we have to look at our upper level offerings at Fitch as well, and decide how can we utilize our resources most effectively through our AP and IB programs. Because again, right now we're very divided in a lot of areas, and we're spreading ourselves too thin, and it's to the detriment of both programs.
I think Anne Marie said one time that you would look at the offerings at the IB program.
I'm happy to do that in cooperation with the team at Fitch.
Okay. I remember you talking about that during budget time. Okay. Adrian?
All right, back to me. All right, so I'm guessing that there's lots of kids that also feel that they had a great education with AP, and I'm hoping that we'll hear from staff members that might support that line as well, so we can get a balanced opinion of things. I mean, I know my son took all AP, he took a couple of IB, and he was not as happy with the IB classes, and his college didn't take any prerequisites, or it didn't take any credits. They just kind of satisfied prerequisites, and the IB offerings didn't satisfy the prerequisites, so he ended up having to kind of retake some classes that he wanted to skip over in college. So I would be interested in hearing of success stories and staff that kind of are interested in the AP as well. I feel like right now 3 times as many kids are taking, or there's 3 times as many slots being filled for AP as IB, so it's clearly more popular, and it has been, and we've been doing IB for 15 years, and I do think that we have something different in IB now with you, Chris, and I appreciate that, we are getting it off the ground, but I would rather see people choose to take it rather than being kind of forced into taking IB. That's speaking for myself, not for the whole board. I do think that, like, the theory of knowledge, maybe that is a great class for everybody to take, but some of the math or science, maybe AP is a little bit better at some of those. So I would be interested in hearing some staff opinions on that. All right, and that's it. Thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody for coming out tonight.
Anything else? And I appreciate the students
I
that,
have something to say. This is kind of important.
come up to the mic.
Yeah. I'm not trying to be confrontational in any way, and I want to make sure this is heard. But I mean, and I think what you just mentioned, I was going to say that is that if you can find those AP students that really think that AP is the best thing going, but I don't think you're going to be able to get these types of testimonies from AP students. And I want to make sure this is clear that, you know, the IB, we're trying to figure out the best thing for the students and the community to give the best education to the students. And if that happens to be AP, let's do it. And if it happens to be IB, then let's have the classes represent that. And if there isn't a lot of kids, you know, pushing to go into IB yet, then let's just continue to say how great IB is. And I think that having the courses represent how the student body changes over time. So as students continue to join the IB program more, you continue to push for IB more. But I would love to hear those amazing success stories from AP, directly relating it to the AP classes, because I think Fitch is a great school. That being said, IB is what makes Fitch different than a lot of the schools in the area.
Right.
And that's what I really wanted to say is that it's what makes us a better school in a lot of ways. And that could be my personal opinion. But I definitely believe it's true.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Because of that, see, now it went down the road where we're pitting AP against IB, and we didn't want to do that.
Exactly.
We didn't want to do that, Mr. Johnson. We just wanted to promote IB, talk about IB. We didn't want to talk about AP at all. It was all about IB. On the agenda, it says IB. So right away, at the end now, we got into the divisiveness that we don't want to get into. All right?
But
One more question, and we're moving on.
Okay. What I wanted to say was, several board meetings ago, I talked about left brain and right brain learning. And as I hear the difference about the different way of approaching learning, to me, IB appeals more to a right brain learner, AP to a left brain learner. And maybe we should have some presentation of that to the board so that we get an understanding of that. But I think that if the staff at Fitch High School could approach it in the idea of how we learn to all of the students, then they would get an idea of the difference between our approaches to learning. And I think that would ameliorate that divide.
I agree 100%.
Okay. Jen, I'll let you go, and then we'll move on.
Sure. So, Tanner, I was going to express exactly what Beverly had said, right? It shouldn't be one or the other. People should have choice, and both programs are good, and it will serve students in a different way depending on what path, because each person is on a different path. So it should never be like, oh, we only offer IB or we only offer AP. We need to find the right balance for our district and be open to making sure that all needs are being served at various levels of learning. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, again, I wasn't trying to say one's better than the other, because I did take an AP class or two.
Yeah.
They're great, and you learn. Again, I think Fitch is a great
Yeah,
school. It was more or less like, you know, I wouldn't, again, as a student, and, you know, I would never want to have money be the reason why my kids didn't get a better education.
Amen.
Amen.
So, and I, yeah,
Perfect.
right?
Yeah, we're all with you. You want to come to the town council?
You took the words out of my mouth, Susan. You took the words out of my mouth.
So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
so much and spending
Everyone.
this time with us. We really appreciate it. And I do think theory of knowledge for all might be a good idea.
RETH.
And again, thank you for everybody that sent in letters.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So are we going to shift gears?
We're going to shift gears. We'll wait for the high school.
Thank you very much.
you.
Anne-Marie, hit
Thank
the
you,
road
Chris.
right away.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Kamita.
I'll fill you in about the athletic field.
You too.
And I made copies of the article, I don't know.
I didn't want that problem.
No, we're good. Thank
You want to pass these down?
These were the articles that were in the paper.
Yeah, he could be the rep.
They actually, the latest representative, Dan Gaius, my art teacher, started as the board rep, and now he's one of the youngest that's serving. Yeah, as a representative. Bye, thank you, Anne Marie.
You need to keep sharing your story.
Yeah.
Yeah, you keep sharing that.
Let's take like a 5-minute recess. Okay. Recess. Thank you, Mr. Frost, for waiting. I really appreciate your waiting all this time. Mr. Frost is going to give us a presentation on the Athletic Fields Task Force Committee report.
Let me start sharing my screen. If I can find the right screen to share. There we go. Let's see. Not the right screen.
Can you unmute your microphone also?
Can you hear me now?
That's better.
All right. Good evening. For the record, my name is Chad Frost. I'm a principal with Kenton Frost Institute of Architecture. We are based out of Mystic. Very happy to be working on this project for the town. We've been working with Park and Rec for a number of years on field issues. We do this throughout the state, work on all sorts of community projects, but we're really happy when we get to work in our own town because I live just a couple miles from here. It's probably the closest to my house I've ever had to be at a meeting, which is great. So just a quick outline of what we're going to talk about. We're going to go really quickly through the needs for fields, the existing conditions. We've done a lot of public feedback. I'm going to skip through a lot of that really quickly and just try to give you the high-level information, discuss synthetic versus natural turf a little bit because that's something that's been a big topic. Run through the master plan mostly for Fitch, but I will also talk Sutton Park too because that also relates to Fitch, and then the cost estimates, and then happy to take questions. So real quick, the history. Our firm was first approached by the town of Groton 22 years ago saying, hey, we have a problem. We don't have enough fields. We need some solutions. In 2009, we performed a level of service plan. That's what, in Park and Rec terms, they had this level of service where per capita you should have X number of tennis courts and X number of fields and those sorts of things. We had done that in 2009. At that point, the town needed a couple of soccer fields, a football field, and 3 new ball fields. And then we did the Sutton Park master plan at that point, which identified where those 3 new ball fields could go, and then nothing was built. In 2014, it kind of came back around that there needed to be a more in-depth study, so that's when we did a very detailed study of every single kid and adult that touches any field in the town. How many hours each field, how many hours of use there are, and how many hours of need there are, both need and demand, to be able to then really look at what's unique to Groton, because the level of service doesn't quite work for everywhere, because Texas football is a little different than Groton, and vice versa for the other sports. So that's why we did this one. It came out at that point that we needed 4, what we'll call soccer fields, multi-use fields, a youth field, and then a future need of 5 ball fields. At that same point, we did a master plan for the Merritt property, which is there on the lower right, solving most of those needs, and that was literally the day I presented this to the town council was the day we read in the newspaper that the schools were looking to build a new middle school at the Merritt property, so that solution went away. We also did an economic impact study at that point that said that a field complex could generate $2 to $5 million in economic input a single year by bringing in athletics competitions, and that's now 11-year-old study, so those numbers are only going up. It then sat for a while, and in 2020, the town council instituted the Athletics Fields Task Force, which is who we're now working for. It had representatives from across all the Board of Ed and all the organizations. There was, in 2021, the town planning, we went through a Clodchester master plan process to figure out that was now an excess property, right? The school didn't need it anymore. What's the best use for it? Should it be economic development? Should it be multifamily housing? What should it be? And in the end of that, it was the public really wanted that to be a park with athletic fields. And then in 2024, we've now instituted this really detailed study across the town again and looking for where those fields can go. Really quickly, this is our needs and our supply and demand. Basically, we have all the different field uses. So, just really quickly, I'll point out, baseball here. At this point, we had a demand of 2 fields more than what we currently had available on any given day within the town. So we have it for all different sizes of baseball, softball, football, youth-size fields, and regulation multi-use fields. So in general, for most of the main fields that we need, larger baseball, larger rec fields, we have a significant shortage. The task force then said that to solve those problems, their recommendation was at Clodchester to do 2 full-size multi-use fields and a youth field. At Sutton Park to do a baseball field and a softball field. And it's important there to say those are both high school facilities. Right now there's currently a youth ball field there and a adult softball field there. But we then ship our JV and freshman teams all across town to practice every single day because we don't have a facility for them. So if we were able to put that facility at Sutton Park, they can literally walk down the hill from Fitch, either through the driveway at the middle school, or better yet, we have a trail that can go right down the hill, and they can walk to practice, and it's much easier. We're not busing kids all over town. And then Fitch really is where we have a lot of problems that we need to solve from an athletic fields and our athletic amenities perspective. We need a complete renovation of the stadium, track, multi-use field, and everything associated with it.
Bleachers.
Bleachers are really bad, but they're emblematic of everything,
I know.
to be very frank and honest with you. We need more fields. Right, so basically you have one field on the high school, which is the football field, which every single field sport is in theory supposed to share. Right, right now because you did build a turf field at the middle school, which is great and gets a ton of use. But that's kind of like building one chemistry lab and expecting every kid from middle school and the high school to use one chemistry lab and be proficient in chemistry when they graduate. Right, so that shared resource is a great thing. It's better than nothing, but they need significantly more than that. So the recommendation at that point was 2 full-size fields in addition to the stadium itself, and then also getting a softball field on campus. We have no women's specific sport on campus. All the women's teams, field teams, have to leave campus.
Oh, wow.
Right?
That's a problem.
That's a big problem. The field house at the high school was built before the high school had a women's team of anything. There are no women's facilities in the field house. Right? It's basically a locker room for the football team, and that's all it gets used for.
And it was a problem when we had a young woman. We had 2 young women who were on the football team.
It's a problem for all teams, right? Like if you're, let's say the field is too small, but if you could host a soccer game, and you have a women's soccer team, and they show up to play both your home and away, where do all those people go? So it's a significant problem across the board. Just to give you a really quick snapshot of what the facilities are like, this is the existing restroom, concessions, and away team, visiting team area. I'm going to call it an area. It's not really a locker room. That's the building. This is the restrooms on the right-hand side, right? This is the public restrooms. So if I'm there as a spectator and I go to the bathroom, I am standing outside the door when I take this picture. So anybody that opens the door exposes everybody inside that restroom going to the bathroom. So that's down at the football field. At the middle school, again, great facility, we have one porta potty. This field is now being used by every middle school athletics team and all the high school teams. Even the football team is trying to get practice time on here because they need to be able to practice on synthetic turf. And so every single team is trying to get on there. I had a mom come up to me after one of the meetings and said, what you don't understand is when even any girls team has a sport here, has a game here, and the away team shows up, they might have been on an hour-long bus ride to get here. And those young women show up, and all they have is one porta potty to be able to go in and utilize and not be able to have sinks to wash your hands in and things like that. So just, again, the field facility is great, but the rest of the facilities that we talk about at athletics are missing. And I think, again, it was because that was built, intended to be used as a middle school, which it should be. But it's being used by everybody. A few more pictures. The field house back down at the high school, again, built, like I mentioned before, there was a female sports team on campus. There is no ADA access whatsoever, right? Handicap access. That's the stairway to get into the front of it. This is the current situation inside. So this is a bathroom, the shower stall. You can see the gang showers in the background. It's been boarded shut and sandbagged to hold the boards in place. We've got ceiling tiles falling down and significant issues with issues going on in the ceilings. You've got bathroom stalls that we're just bagging over because we can't fix them. Pipes falling out of the ceiling, right? So the field house is in pretty bad condition.
That's embarrassing.
Is it legal?
It is. Then bleachers. The superintendent, you mentioned the bleachers as we started. There is not a single thing with these bleachers that are code compliant, right? And I've tried to express this to people in the past, but the liability that you have here is significant. And so, what I will do then is the next slide. You guys did do, just end of last year, you had Silver Petrocelli do a review of those bleachers, just the bleachers themselves. They came up with this report, and it summarizes things really quite well. And it says they strongly recommend prompt replacement of everything. The structural components aren't there. These bleachers, the structure underneath, we believe, were constructed back when the school was brand new, so that's 60 years ago. There were probably wood bleachers on there at some point because that's how they were done then. Somebody took the wood off and put aluminum down. We have no idea if the aluminum planking has the right strength to do the spans. All of the safety features from falling between them and underneath and down through, there's no safety features. There's no safety features on the edge. There's no railings. The away bleachers, this picture down here is the picture of the away bleachers. That's one person walking across the walkway of the bleachers. So if we have an away team come and their grandparent goes to sit in the stands, they have to walk on a plank that's 7 inches wide with no handrails and nothing below them if they fall to get to their seat. And then to further complicate that, all the structures, it's hard to see in this picture on the screen probably, but the structure support for that actually runs above the walking surface. So you have to step over these beams about every 5 or 6 feet as you're walking on a balance beam with nothing to hang on to and nothing below you and nothing beside you. So again, I'll just, deficient in everything from ADA to building code. Their recommendations I can concur with wholeheartly, strongly recommends prompt replacement.
And there was a cost to that too.
Their cost estimate was around $3.6 million. They were, and they're looking at this in a vacuum, right? And basically replace the full big bleacher set and the press box and the away team bleachers. What we've come up with in our plan, what our recommendation is at the moment, is to combine both bleachers into one larger bleacher on one side of the field where the main one is, so that you're only replacing one bleacher set and putting the press box up there. We can do that slightly less money. So our cost estimate that we're proposing, the bleachers are just over $2 million instead of 3.6 for building 2 different sets. But it's not that's still a lot of money to be able to deal with.
It would help at graduation too to have it that way.
When you think about non-accessible bleachers for parents. My parent, needs a wheelchair to be able to get there now. So when my son graduates, or when my two sons graduated, now my third is a freshman at Fitch, it's impossible for him to be able to watch. Right? It's great that you can wheel him up. You give him a special ticket. Here's your ticket. You can wheel up and sit behind the fence. You can't see anything because everybody else in front of you is taller.
Yeah.
And you can't get up. There's no way to get up onto the bleachers whatsoever. For all sporting events, for graduation, and even just for the pep rallies and things that the school should be doing kind of on a daily basis. Other things, this is just a high-level view of the field as it currently is, just for your own view. So that's the home bleachers with the press box on top, the away bleachers. The field itself, this track is a really narrow track. So you can arrange tracks, you can design them in different ways. They all have to be the same length, but we can make them wider and shorter or narrower and longer. This is the narrower and longer version, which is one of the things that compounds some of our issues, because then we also have some of the long jump here on the sideline. And when you add the narrow track and the long jumps, it doesn't give us enough width to be able to play anything but football here. So we don't have the safety zones required for soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, all the other field sports, as well as then when we add some of the throwing spaces. The football field, I know you guys have heard, Sam's been putting in the budget for years to replace the existing grass because it's in pretty bad shape. And it only can basically be used by the football team for games. They do a little bit of practicing on it, and then they do games on it. So if you think about that, that's about 7 to 10 uses a year that this field is getting, instead of every single day by multiple teams and multiple athletes all day long. There is a practice facility over here. It's all grass. It's not graded correctly, and it's actually too narrow. They can't get a full width field striped on it because of the area that's there, but that's where they have to practice most of the time, and marching band practices there as well. And I should mention the marching band is part of this whole athletics complex because we have an amazing marching band. They've been asked to host national or very important events because of how good they are, and they're not able to host them here because we don't have synthetic turf field. That's one of the requirements for hosting a marching band event is a synthetic turf field. And that's because how quickly this would turn to a mud pit if you put thousands of kids marching on it over the course of a weekend. Again, I'm going to skim through a lot of we did a lot of public input, had plenty of meetings with the public. We're continuing to do that. We've heard, as we do more, we hear from more people saying, oh, I didn't even know about this. So we continue to do more public outreach. Some of the feedback really quickly, we were asking about preferred surfaces versus natural versus synthetic and any concerns. On all the different kind of stadiums, this is the Fitch Field Stadium. The purple is the synthetic. Right, so very obvious high demand that everybody wants synthetic at the main championship field, as well as this potential new practice area. And then the third practice area could remain natural grass at Fitch.
Is the number, is that 25 for the purple?
Yep, at that particular, there's 25 participants that were voting for that on that particular day.
So that's not really a high number.
Well, for public input meetings, that's actually a pretty good response. We're getting 40 to 50 people, which doesn't sound like a lot of people, but that for when we do these across the state, that's actually a pretty good turnout for a public meeting on a public park.
But you wouldn't make a decision based on that number.
Well, we're making the decision based on the needs, right? So when I look at it, I can do an hour analysis and say, by your needs, this is what you really need to have. And then what we wanted to do is talk to the public as well and be able to ask them what their thoughts were. And we've had it open online. We've had it in a bunch of different sessions, but that was one particular session that we were asking that question. What surprised us out of that one was some information for Claude Chester, which you guys probably don't care about anymore, but we actually got a lot of support for synthetic turf fields at Claude Chester, too, for the youth perspective because of the amount of times that the youth fields are shut down due to rain.
And flooding.
And flooding. They're in a flood zone, which is okay for some athletic fields because it's a good use, better than housing. But it does mean that they get shut down.
Ian has a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Ian?
Thank you. Yeah, actually, more just a quick side comment on the numbers that are attached to some of these public polling. I know I was approached by a number of people, and at the town council meeting where the presentation was made, and basically there was they were kind of consolidating efforts. So a lot of the people that went to the meeting were there on behalf of larger numbers of people because not everyone can make time to get to all the meetings. So if you had 25, there could be a lot more inside that 25.
Okay.
That's an excellent point. Thank you. And actually, and to further that, I guess to explain it a little bit, is we reach out through like the Groton Soccer Club, right? And that particular night, we had about 5 individuals from the Groton Soccer Club. They're representing about 500 individuals on behalf of the Groton Soccer Club. So the great, excellent clarification.
Yeah, that was good.
This was, ranked. We asked the public to rank the order of importance. This looks like a really bad Sudoku puzzle. But when we run it through some graphing information, this basically is the ranking of what's the most important from the public that we've heard of so far. This is the Fitch High School Stadium was the clear winner as the most important thing that needs to be done. Next was the Fitch multi-use field, having a full secondary field to be able to practice on. Then came a Claude Chester field, then the Fitch practice field, then the Fitch softball field, then another Claude Chester field, the Claude Chester youth, and then the last 2 actually were Sutton Park baseball and softball. Not terribly surprising for us, but a good thing to be able to go through.
And we've been hearing that from the start of all of this, too.
Oh, yeah.
Which has been a priority.
Yes. Yep. I won't go through most needed, least needed. I'll skip through some of the facility questions. I'll go through this pretty quickly, but stop me if you have questions. Natural versus synthetic, some of the questions. We've run through this presentation a couple of times for the public. There's all the different resources that we're using in order to evaluate both synthetic and natural turf. I'm going to just keep skipping through since I don't want to be here for 2 more hours. Durability, performance. So basically, just letting you know that whether it's synthetic or natural, there's a whole lot of tests that we can do now to make sure that the playing performance and the safety of the field is top notch. It used to be everybody just thought, hey, I've got green grass. That's an athletic field. In reality, that's really a dangerous athletic field because that's where kids go to play. But if it doesn't have the resiliency underneath of it, kids get hurt when that impact to the ground tends to be more damaging than player-to-player contact. And then we also worry about twisting and rotations and things like that. So there's a lot of different testing that we do to get both either natural grass or synthetic turf to be as safe as we can. Some pros and cons with natural grass. You know all of these because we all maintain our yards. The one big thing from a school perspective is how you're basically maintaining the field with a hand tied behind your back, in Connecticut at least, right? From the regulations that are in place about the chemicals and the treatments and the processes that you can do to treat those fields. From a turf management perspective, you can't put on or treat with the frequency that you would need to be able to treat them as a very top-notch athletic facility. So that's one of the cons, especially on a school facility and especially at a high school, from a use perspective, is that we can't treat it like a professional field. We can't treat it like a semi-professional field because it's still a field at a school that has a lot of restrictions on it. And so then that for the natural grass really does, the usability, the performance, the weather, it does really require downtime between uses. You can't just use a field all the time and expect it to be there again. You're really supposed to rest the field so much in between uses. And obviously the durability correlates to usage. The more you use it, the quicker it'll wear out. Synthetic turf, the pros are that you can use it, unaffected by weather. It's pretty much there and ready all the time. The durability is great. We've gotten away from the UV deterioration. As long as you're maintaining it properly. Very high performing. You can use it, you can't truly use it 24 hours a day, but you can use it a lot more, basically double what you can in a natural grass field. The one main con that we're very aware of, because they've been around for a long time, is the heat effect. We know that synthetic turf absorbs more heat than a natural grass field does, and the transpiration that you get from the grass is cooling effect. You don't get that, obviously, from a synthetic turf field. There are ways of minimizing and using that. There are some cooling agents we can put within the infill. And in some cases, we irrigate the synthetic turf field just to be able to cool it off. It's not as big of an issue in New England as it is kind of mid-Atlantic and especially in the south versions of the country. And up here where most of our sports, especially high school, are really early spring and really late fall, we don't have that high heat to worry about, where if you're playing athletics on a synthetic turf field in July, you definitely have to watch out for it. I'll also note that all of our athletic coaches and obviously the athletic department are very aware of this, because pretty much every single field our athletes play on, other than Fitch, is a synthetic turf field. There are 2 that I know of that are left in the ECC out of like the 30-something schools in ECC. There are 2 other fields that are natural grass, and one of those, Bacon up in Colchester, is scheduled to go to synthetic turf already. So it's not new. It's what their athletes are playing on most places, so they're used to that heat effect.
We noticed that in 2020 when we built that middle school, and the first graduating class.
It's warm.
It was hot. And so now we use the regular grass field for graduation. Yep. But if there's a way that you can create it so that there's something that you can put into the ground that would help be a coolant.
Yep, there are both. You can irrigate it, like I said, and then also there are new things you put within the infill, right? So the synthetic turf is obviously all the fibers, but then most of it is the infill within it. And at the middle school, you guys use a natural product like a cork coconut mix for that infill. We can then put in some other gels that basically are water absorbing, almost like what you would think is inside of a diaper, that type of gel absorbent, and then that slowly releases water, which is a cooling, basically makes the field evaporate over time and cool it off. So there are ways of being able to add that.
But what's the maintenance and the upkeep for all? Do you have to do that often? Is it one shot?
Well, so if we were to put in irrigation, it's just automatic, and you irrigate it when you have a heat issue, right? And that's it. Otherwise, maintenance on a synthetic turf field, you still should maintain it. You have to maintain, and the maintenance is significantly less. You're basically raking it. You run it over and you refluff it up just to make sure all the grass piles aren't just laying down. As soon as they all lay down and get matted down, they start breaking off, and then you lose that turf. So if you maintain it correctly, they should last 10 to 15 years.
Oh, you just answered it. I was going to ask you, how often do you have to replace like a synthetic field that you just said?
Synthetic turf is 10 to 15 years is what we're telling people. Most, Stonington's right now about to replace theirs. Theirs is almost 15 years old. At the time that that went in, the life expectancy was 8 years. So they really almost doubled the life out of the field. Now it really needs to be replaced. But there is a replacement cost. That replacement cost, and I've got some numbers for you, is significantly less when you're replacing versus construction, because a lot of the construction cost is everything underneath what I'll call the carpet, just that surface. You've got a lot of stone drainage and earthwork to build that up. When you do the replacement, all you're doing is basically rolling up the carpet, rolling out a new carpet, putting in the new infill, and fluffing it up, and you're back up with a brand new field again.
And where do you dispose of the carpet?
That's a great question, and somewhat controversial, I'll say, because not all companies were disposing of them correctly. Sometimes they would end up in landfills. Some companies were buying large plots of land and going and dumping them. And so and now we can say the very first facility was built in the U.S. last year to be able to recycle these. So we're now looking at putting in the specs. When you put it in, a set aside of money to be able to then do the recycling of the field at its end of life use. In reality, it should be, there's not a lot of materials to recycle, but it's just getting it apart is a big deal.
Matthew?
I've heard some conversations about environmental concerns, about breakdown of the synthetic field.
Yep.
Entering to the waterway.
Yep.
It's far above my pay grade. So I'd like you to comment upon them, and if there is any truth to it, concern at all, is there a way to mitigate that concern?
Excellent question. I skipped forward a slide right to that one. So one of the big concerns, obviously, as I mentioned, was the plane surface and heat temperature. Then we look at heavy metals, because there was definitely a concern that there's heavy metals coming off of these fields. The consultant that's working with us, I should have mentioned Castle Blues Associates, is one of our team members on this. On a field just last year, they were replacing Northeast Catholic field. They went from natural grass to synthetic turf. They tested their stormwater runoff before they removed the natural grass field, and then tested it again afterwards. And what they found was a reduction of heavy metals and an improved water quality of the stormwater that left the site when it was a synthetic field versus when it was natural grass. So because of all the treatments of natural grass, you actually get a lot more heavy metal runoff, and your stormwater is of less quality coming off
What's
of
the origin of the heavy metals? I don't get that.
the origins of heavy metals in a natural grass field
Either one.
are the fertilizers, right? And all of the stuff that you're putting on it to try to make it grow as healthy as you can get it to grow. In synthetic, they were worried about it like a breakdown of the synthetic fiber, right? And what we found is that just hasn't happened. It's not leaching chemicals away. And then also the other question that we have on there is PFAS, right? That was a whole new thing that's really come out in the last 5 years, really. And historically, there were almost all turf companies were making fields that were made out of a synthetic that included PFAS chemicals. Very quickly, once they realized this is a bad thing, we need to get them out of there, they recalibrated their synthetics to be able to be PFAS free, and very quickly said, hey, we don't have any PFAS anymore, which is true. But then the actual manufacturing process of turning that synthetic fiber into the grass fiber, one of the things that PFAS is used for in a lot of places is like a lubricant. And so in the manufacturing, the one company would make the fiber and say there's no PFAS in here, and then it would go to the manufacturer to extrude and create the fibers, and in that extrusion process they were using PFAS as a lubricant, which would then cross-contaminate the material, and then you still would end up with some in your field even though you were using PFAS-free raw material. So they've now realized that those two things are issues, and they're now recalibrating everything to make it so you can get a PFAS-free field. And I was just talking to an expert today out of Boston who was saying they're now writing the spec so that the field, the material for a new field has to be tested prior to construction. So while they're manufacturing the material, they're going to test it for PFAS and be able to prove that it's PFAS free during the manufacturing before we even accept it onto the site. Like it's too late to test it once we've already got it to try to send it back and all that. So we can mitigate. We feel like we can mitigate the PFAS substantially because you can take it out of both the raw material and the processing. And if we can reduce the stormwater is cleaner leaving a synthetic field, which seems a little, it's hard to understand, I think, conceptually. But the way a synthetic turf field is built is you have a concrete curb all the way around it, and you have a whole bunch of basically a giant filter built below it, where you have the synthetic turf on top, which has some infill, it can be organic material. Then you have a sand layer, which is a filtration system. Then below that you have a fine choking layer of gravel, then a big layer of gravel, and then filter fabric underneath that, and then your pipe that discharges your water. So it's actually, if you were to build a septic system or something, I mean, this has got more filtration built into it. It's not intended that way, but because of how we collect the stormwater, it actually acts as a filter. And the water's not running off the sides. Like in a normal natural grass field, we let the water shed off the sides, and then it's running off and carrying the fertilizers and things with it into the stormwater. We then did hear, a big concern from a few individuals in town that were concerned about microplastics and the fact that we're close to Fort Hill Brook, and are we going to be discharging microplastics into the environment? So we've actually initiated, to our knowledge, the first study of microplastics coming off of a field. And we initiated it last year, but couldn't actually do the testing until just this week. Because last year we were in a drought, and we need a certain amount of rain to be able to get through all of that field and be able to drain off. And then we went from drought basically into frozen ground, and we can't test in frozen ground. And this week, I reached out to Sam, I don't know if it was Sunday night or Monday night, one of those nights. It had rained all night, and it was going to be dry enough for us to be able to test. And so we went out with some of the guys, we pulled the covers, and we did microplastic testing of the stormwater leaving that existing field up at the middle school. And then we tested it at a couple places through what we call the treatment train as it goes down the hill through all the existing stormwater basins, and sent that off to the lab. It has to be collected. You can't wear anything that even has any synthetic on you, right? So like a fleece or something like that has to be all 100% cotton, so you don't want to contaminate the source that you're getting. Has to then be refrigerated, and we had to overnight it down to New Jersey because that's the only place around that has a lab capable of testing for the microplastics. So we're excited to get that information back and see, is there any microplastics coming out of that existing field that's now at this point 5-ish years old? And be able to really look at that to see if that's a problem that we need to do something more to solve on or not.
You'll be sharing that with Sam.
I'll be sharing it with all of you. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, question.
Was that water collected above the Grosso Tech field?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, above and below, actually. So we did,
Okay.
we did a sample as it's coming in. The whole stormwater, there's a bunch of piping underneath the field that all discharges through one manhole cover that's really deep in the ground. We actually had to lower a big pipe down in there to get to it. That's the main discharge. We tested there. We tested down the treatment train, but still on middle school campus.
Okay.
We tested the tap water of the middle school as kind of our control to see,
Yep.
because we know it's coming through a filtration system already that's being treated. It has a lot of plastic components. It's coming through pipes that are plastic and things like that. So what's that kind of baseline tap water look like? And then we tested in Fort Hill Brook downstream of both middle school and Grosso Tech, basically kind of adjacent to the water treatment plant down there, to be able to see what kind of microplastics are in Fort Hill Brook.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. Maintenance daily operations, I'm going to skip through this pretty quickly. You know we got to mow grass, and as I mentioned, the biggest thing is maintaining it on a school facility is very difficult. The maintenance of the synthetic turf, weekly you should be going around and distributing the high stuff so that infill can move around as kids are moving, kids or adults I should say. As they're moving, that infill does move around. You just need to rake it back in. Ideally that's just done with a machine just like this. You're just dragging a drag behind a little gator really quickly, and that fluffs everything up, grooms it. Annually, if there's any repairs that need to be done, I think the field you have has worked out quite well. I know you did an infill redo this past summer, right? The infill replenishment, and then every 10 to 15 years, like I said, is that full replacement.
What's the cost of that machine, or do we just
You own
need the
one.
back part? Oh, we own one?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, it's not like that one, but we,
It's not that exact one, that's the generic, but you own one right now. So what we'd be looking at is most likely a turf product that's similar to what you have, that the same machine could maintain all synthetic turf. And as I was mentioning before, this is basically, a lot of the cost of building the field is all this gravel, all this earthwork that's underneath of it. And then you're literally rolling out the carpet like a carpet, gluing it all together, putting in the lines, and that's really all that you have to replace in the end.
How many companies make the synthetic turf?
There's quite a few. There is, I'm going to say, upwards of a dozen at least, and then there's probably a handful or more that are the really big names that do most of the fields.
So how do you know which one to go with?
Well, so the way we would normally do it is we write a performance spec, and we write a spec of this is what we want the material to be and how we want it to perform, because there are a whole lot of different tile lengths and sizes and everything else, and so we can write a specification for that, and then all the companies can bid on, if they can meet that specification or not.
Mike has a question. Mike?
Thank you. Thanks, Chad, for the presentation. And I guess this is going to go to, if it goes anywhere, it'll go to a vote on bonding. And it'll be a multi-year effort to one, get it approved, and then have the fixed football fields, and softball fields done, and then Sutton Park and over at Quad Chester as well. Because it's so many multi-years, it's kind of like a 5 to 7 year time span. Should we include in the bonding a replacement for the current field middle school? Because it seems like it's right on that timeline.
You know what, Mike? That's a great question. It was one that hasn't been asked before, but probably makes a whole lot of sense that by the time we're at the completion of this, that we'd need to do a refresh of that. So that's probably a great idea that we should add into the plan.
Thanks. I only had it because you brought it up. Didn't take credit.
All right. Keep moving through. So we have a life cycle cost comparison, just so you see some high level numbers. I'm not going to go through everything in crazy detail, but happy to share it with you all so you can look at it if you need help sleeping some night. But basically, kind of life cycle costs, very upfront costs, working from left to right. Natural grass field here, $600,000, $690,000. A natural grass all organic is $700,000. A couple of synthetic fields with, I'll say, normal or common infills are in that 1.3 range, and a synthetic turf with an organic infill, which is what you had done at the middle school, is closer to that 1.5 number. So that's kind of your bare cost of just, if everything else is even and we're just putting it in the field, that's kind of what it costs per year. Annually, as you look at things, again, same kind of categories, but when you have natural grass, you're at about $43,000. Organic, you're about $54,000. Those are your annual costs. Synthetic, we're effectively basically over here, we're putting in a little bit of time for watering. This isn't including like mowing, some of the other incidentals and service of like school staff's time. We're not counting some of their time. Over a 15-year lifespan, which is 2 replacements, so that adds up to $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 for natural grass. And you're down in the 40s or 50s for synthetic. Surface repairs and replacements. So here we're saying, okay, you have to do some bigger work every so often on natural grass fields. We know we got to do a decompaction, we got to do deep aeration, we got to sod it in some areas and things like that. So you're in that $175,000 to $200,000, over a 15-year period for that. And then what we're then saying, top dressing and infill on the synthetics is $10,000 to $60,000, and then we include a new synthetic turf surface on top of that. So that's anywhere from $500,000 to $600,000 for that new just surface layer, the new carpet. So your maintenance cost then, if you're including over 15 years a full replacement of that synthetic turf, goes from $100,000 or $200,000 for natural up to $600,000 for synthetic, because you've now basically put 2 synthetic fields down. The value where that starts to pay for itself is when you look at the life cycle and the use, how much use you can get out of it. Because basically it comes down to number of hours that you can use a field. And so the available field hours for a natural grass field, you get about 600 hours of use out of it before you start degrading the quality of that lawn. So that, for the natural grass field, that ends up at about $500 a use is what you're paying for over a 15-year life cycle. When you get to the synthetic, you can use it now 1,500 hours. So more than double, but not quite triple is your use hours. And you can get larger events, the bigger, the graduations, the big events and things like that on there. So now your cost per use is half of what it was for a natural grass field. So you get a significantly more use out of the field, even though it's a more upfront cost, which we fully acknowledge. You get a lot more use out of it. So in the end, you're now down in that $200 to maybe $300 per use instead of $600 or $700 per use. All right, now finally to the plan, and I'll try to go through this fairly quickly too, but just to give you some orientation, this is most of the existing Fitch High School. This is the existing baseball field. This is the parking lot as you come around the back on the athletics side, where kind of the athletics parking area is, just for orientation. And then the parking around the front, currently this parking comes around like this and loops back through here. So we've omitted some of that parking in lieu of where the softball field can go. However, because of the parking we can add down this side and parking down here and parking down here, we actually increase the total available spaces on campus, even though we're reducing some of it close to the actual building itself. And I'll note from all the times dropping my kid off at school, this lot, that portion of that lot is almost never used. It's used during an athletic event. Otherwise, it's sitting empty for the day-to-day use. I'm going to zoom in and just pan around real quick. Starting up at the high school, first and foremost, some actual code-compliant ADA parking spaces, which we don't have and are in desperate need of. We have kind of an arrival gateway area, and we have a bathroom. But right now, there is no bathroom that's outside of the high school at Fitch. So in the summer, or even on weekends, if the building isn't open, there's nowhere for anybody to go to the bathroom. And there are times when baseball is hosting a tournament out there, and the officials don't have a place to go to the bathroom. The spectators don't have, or you're putting a porta potty out there for that use. And
same thing with the middle school, though. They don't have a bathroom.
Absolutely. Yep. But have been historically running more events here in the summer than at the middle school. And so the idea is that we could put a restroom facility here that's kind of central to baseball, tennis, and future softball that allows for both athletes and spectators and officials to be able to use a restroom without having to have the building be open and have the custodian there to unlock and lock. ADA accessible walkways that go actually to baseball, and accessible walkways to go to some viewing areas for tennis. There's an existing road basically that drives down a very steep hill to the tennis court that's not accessible, so we swap that out for some stairs and put in some higher areas for visibility for the existing tennis courts, which we are not planning to replace. And then also making an ADA accessible pathway to the back of the bleachers at the stadium, so that really the press box is now ADA accessible from back here, so you can have an announcer that needs that park here in accessible parking and be able to get to the back via an accessible route. Panning up to a potential new softball field. So locationally, we have athletics down here. This is the greenhouse, if you're familiar with where that is on the back of school. Right now, the majority of this area is a big, open, sloping grass area that is unused. It's where there was a wing of the school at one point that was demolished during one of the last construction projects. So now it's basically mostly a sloping lawn, as I mentioned, with a little bit of parking down here, because that second loop of parking happens right through here. We do have room to be able to fit in a full-size high school softball field there with all the amenities. And the amenities meaning dugouts, press box, bleachers, bullpens for both teams, batting cages, the lights, scoreboard, ball netting. We would have safety ball netting around most of the whole side of this, especially over here where we know we have a greenhouse. That's a long ball for a softball to get there. But, it's cheap insurance to put up the fence and make sure it doesn't get there. We have to do some grading to make this happen, right? So we're digging down this area into the hillside a little bit, which actually makes it good for some spectators because we have a little bit of a sloped hill. You can sit on this grassy hill and watch the game. And then on this end, we're doing some fill and having a retaining wall on that outfield fence line to be able to level that whole field off within what is now kind of an existing sloped area. As we pan down, this is the existing field house. So I used, you guys had done a study a number of years ago, hired an architect to look at either refurbishment or replacement of the field house. We used their plans and their numbers as part of the study. We took the option of repair the existing and add on to it with the required amount of space that we need to be able to get both a full-size men's and women's, or we would call two teams, locker rooms, and then an independent locker room as well, family-style type locker room, much smaller, obviously, in size. Has room for officials, official changing areas, has some coaching areas, has athletic training areas, has some storage capabilities. So kind of all of the amenities that you should have in a field house. That's the kind of space that needed. So we basically used the existing building because that saved us quite a few millions of dollars to leave that and renovate it and then put an addition on the side of it. So we've modified where the roadway comes down the hill, pushed it over.
Concession stand.
Concession stand is kind of right in here. So what we're planning to do here is new roadway down, larger drop-off zones. So this could be, you could come down and drop people off at the main gate. ADA parking down here for people. And then we come through here and have a major ticketing booth. We want to make this kind of like an arrival sequence, right? Have some pride in Groton and Fitch so that when you're showing up, if you're the away team, you might feel a little bit intimidated. You're playing some of that space with those new amenities. We then have men's, women's restrooms on either side and a new concessions building happening right here closer to the stadium. We also like to put concessions that you have to walk by on the way in and you have to walk by on the way out. Right? As opposed to if you're putting it somewhere off to the side, it doesn't get nearly as much use. And then I'll also point out a new storage building over here. that is also adjacent to where we're doing the largest. So those are the high jump. We have the main high jump here, and then a secondary high jump pit here. We haven't striped it permanently with the lines, but we know that to host ECCs, you'd want to have 2 pits going. But for most dual meets, you don't need 2 pits. So we're making it the ability to host those tournaments without kind of having it displace what we need all the time. Or, excuse me, that's pole vault pits and everything. High jump is in this location. I'll pan out and down a little bit. So this is a new 8-lane track. Currently we have a 6-lane track. We've played with that orientation, as I talked about at the beginning, played with the basically kind of the organ of the track dimensions to get our best suited field size. We've moved the throwing and the jumping areas to the outside so we can now fit full-size soccer, which is basically the biggest field that there is. So we have soccer, field hockey, men's and women's lacrosse, football. All athletic field sports can now fit within this field with all the required safety zones.
We don't have to bus them to another field.
We don't have to bus them
I
all
like that.
across town.
Transportation is expensive.
Yes.
It can be right here.
Yes. And then we've, as I mentioned in the beginning, moved all of the bleachers into one, consolidated them into one with a new press box up above. This would be fully ADA compliant with the ramps up to it and all the viewing areas that we would need. I'll keep panning down. Practice area.
So that means you're not going to have bleachers on both sides?
Correct.
Ah.
Correct. Yeah. In this case, and really what's driving that is that lower field, which I'll talk about in a minute. In order to get that lower field in, because, as you all know, it's a hill, right? And so to make the grades work the best and try to get our cut fill balance as best we could, it helped to have the 2 fields closer together versus we put the space in there for that away team bleacher, and it pushes that field further down the hill and gets more expensive because we get closer to a very steep slope that we're trying to avoid. But also just point out here, this is the natural grass practice area. We're able to move the field slightly so that we can enlarge it to a point to where we actually get a full width football field for practice. And then also the throwing area is one of the things we heard from the athletes, coaches, and athletic department was that but they don't have permanent areas for throwing, meaning like just the infrastructure around it. Because they're throwing over the practice area, it's all kind of temporary. Even the pit here, to be able to throw into a pit that's got gravel so that you can see where the shot put lands as opposed to just throwing it on the lawn is a very different experience, allows you for hosting and doing much better events. So we have rearranged the throwing events over that practice area as well. Now to go up to here, again, fitting this new full-size practice area. So this field is also full-size. It fits everything, all sports that are at the high school, from soccer to field hockey. How we stripe it is a question we can talk about. Do we put every single sport on it? Do we include football? What we've talked about, in some places we put most sports permanently lined, and then some sports we might paint on, because you can use paints that wear off, and so that you might not have, and I'll just say football, for instance, because we're showing it here and not here, that maybe football is painted on the practice field so that you can practice on it all year round, or practice on it during football season, but then during the other seasons it's not on there anymore because you're using it for other field surfaces. Or you could choose to say we're going to use this for one sport and this for another sport. How we stripe it is something to be determined down the road, but it's big enough to hold all athletic teams. We also have lights. I should have mentioned we had lights on the synthetic, so all new lights on all the fields. We do have some small bleachers down here and a scoreboard, so that if you were running kind of a small event, you could end up having 2 teams playing games at the same time, basically adjacent to each other. There's about a 30-foot grade change from one field to the other field, so it is dropping down the hill. This is, it's not a flat lawn here. This is a steep slope. And then actually what we found when we went out in the woods here, because this is basically a very wooded area right now, this is all heavily disturbed. It has, at some point, when they were building Fitch, is my guess, all the rock, mostly rock, that they came out of the ground, they just were pushing it down the hill and pushing it down the hill. And so we have just a hillside of really large rock down there, which is both good and bad. It's bad in that we have to deal with it. But it's good in that we actually need quite a bit of gravel, right? And so we could bring in a plant, we could crush it and handle it on site and be able to reuse it for some of the fill that we need on site. But it does incur costs. We're not building a field in a flat field. We're building a field on a slope. And the other thing is there is a Groton utilities water line that runs basically diagonally underneath here. That's the line that goes from Groton Utilities up to the water tower and fills the water tower. That we would have to do a relocation of that water line around this field as we go in. We have talked and worked with them about where that goes and what their requirements are, so we've built that into our costs as well. So speaking
That
of...
has a question.
Yeah.
So that field, they're the same size?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep. Surface-wise, this field and this field are the same size.
Same size, so you could have like a varsity and a JV game.
Absolutely.
Going at the same time.
You have varsity and
That's actually
JV
great.
going at the same time. What we anticipate happening quite often, actually, is where you could do the games because a lot of times there's say soccer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Men's soccer might be home and women's soccer might be away on the same
Yeah.
day, right? So you could have your JV and varsity going at the same time, or if they're not overlapping, you could have the women playing their game on the main field and the men practicing down below. Whereas right now, where there's only one field, and every single team is competing for it, it is a scheduling nightmare. So then get into cost, everybody's favorite part, and I would agree with the young individual here that we shouldn't save money, and if we all had an open checkbook, this would be easy. But the main, we've broken this into a bunch of different, subcomponents just to help people digest it. But the main area here, which is, the buildings, the concessions, the restrooms, the couple $1 million bleachers, the all new track field surfaces, everything else. Right now, we're estimating that comes in at about $12.5 million just for that work. We're then saying site amenities, which is kind of everything shaded in this just transparent color. So that's all of your ADA accessible walkways, your parking improvements, the grading, the drainage, kind of all the associated infrastructure that we need to build is coming in at just over $6 million. The restroom building is just over $300,000. The softball field is about $2.8 million. The field house, we're right now saying it's about $8.8 million, which is actually slightly less than some of the numbers in your consultant's report, and that's just because of the size of what we're doing and how we're reconfiguring some things. And they were also proposing public restrooms and public concession stands in their building, and we've separated them out to get them closer to where you want the public to be as opposed to within the walking all the way around all of the athletics locker rooms to get to a public section on the far side. So 8.8 for the field house, and then the multi-use field down the hill is about 6.4 all in. So total for Fitch right now is about $37 million. We do, and that's just that's us putting our full cost estimate on it. We're putting a pretty significant contingency on it because we want to be safe at this point. We're putting some escalation on numbers because we know it's going to take a little bit of time to get there. And we haven't accounted for anything like school reimbursement from school construction projects. We know there are things that they won't reimburse, like the synthetic turf, but there are some things that are possible to be reimbursed, like the buildings, the field house, the concessions and locker rooms, the bleachers. Some of those amenities are able to be reimbursed if that's a process we want to go through to be able to reduce some of the direct burden to the residents.
Now, do they reimburse for natural grass?
What we want to do is go down a really deep dive with them to look at the plan and say what's reimbursable and what's not, right? Which is why I haven't given you any idea, like, is it $2 million or $10 million? Because at this point, we're too early to really know what that question could, or what that answer is.
No, but you said that they don't reimburse for synthetic, so that's why I asked.
I know they
the
don't for
question about
synthetic, and I'm not curious. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know about natural grass because everybody that we've known is putting in synthetic. I don't know anybody's put in a natural grass field to know if it gets reimbursed.
Okay.
So it's a good hefty amount of money, but again, I can't stress enough how desperate, the town is for these amenities. It's a budget, it's a number.
We hope they're desperate.
Can they do the venture?
I know.
I need a manufacturing center. We need
The other thing I'll just, as I mentioned, so Sutton Park, these are, we can fit a full-size baseball and a full-size softball down there. That would basically be the support facilities for the high school. We're doing it with all the same amenities, dugouts, press boxes, the batting cages, bullpens, all of those amenities. They can be used, obviously, by the public when they're not in use by...
Where's the skateboard park?
Skateboard park is all the way to the north. Right, so the Sutton Park is almost like an hourglass. You've got the northern part, which has got the skate park, the basketball courts, the playground, the gazebos, and all that. And then you go through a really narrow pinch point, which is right up here at the top. And then it wides out into...
Is that where there's a small fence, a cyclone fence, maybe 4 or 5 feet?
There is sometimes a gate up there where you go through that really narrow area. And then you come down here and there's 2 ball fields. Yeah. There's then actually Grosso Tech property down here as well. This is their old, you can just see the edge of their old track. And a field down there that at this point is all overgrown with shrubs. But it's part of their property is right there as well. But this is the southern end of Sutton Park. So have the room. There is a multi-use path that comes through here. And I'm just going to click through the next one.
The state would like to build a couple of ball fields down on that extra ground.
The state has almost acted like they're abandoning it. They built all their facilities up at Grosso and not down below. We know their area floods. The whole thing is in a floodway. So we had proposed those fields to be natural grass, not synthetic, because we don't want to have the risk of anything, especially the infill getting carried away in a flood. And their area flooded a lot worse and had a lot more drainage issues than this part of Sutton Park did. So we're not sure what they plan to do with it. Their fields, again at Sutton, just the real quick number, $6.4 million to redo everything there. And we are showing a small indoor training facility that the baseball community has wanted to volunteer to build, or is offering to build. We're leaving them a place for it, and they can do the fundraising to put in that facility. Then this is just the higher level look, right? So this is all of the Fitch property. This is all the new fields and complex at Fitch. This is Grosso's new facility. This is Sutton Park, that southern end. That's the northern part of Sutton, so that's the skate park, the basketball court, the playground, the pavilion. You go through this pinch point. That's the southern half of those fields could be. This is the other half of Grosso's property. The Fort Hill Brook runs right through here. There is an existing, they have a pathway that comes right through here, loops around the hill, and has a bridge that crosses over Fort Hill Brook down to this path. So from an accessibility perspective, right at the high school, if you can walk to the fields, currently they're walking out to this softball field, right? It's not that hard to imagine that they can walk to this softball field or baseball field. So you could have varsity, up here on campus and JV down, or vice versa. But we try to keep it all on campus as opposed to busing people around town every single day.
We've actually opened up the door to do some shared services with Grosso, and they share our field, but we haven't been able to share theirs.
Yes. Yes, during construction.
But with with these beautiful state schools, these beautiful fields, you would think that we could.
Yes.
The community could use them.
It would be great, and even I'll say the youth sports have reached out to try to use that field as well, which they're happy to do if you can afford their fees. And the unfortunate thing is, and it's not they're not trying to make money or reimburse, but they have to have a janitor on call. Has to be there to unlock and lock, and so they just have those fees built into it if you're going to rent the facility. So by the time you're done, it's several $100s per use. And most youth programs just can't afford that on a day-to-day basis.
So how can we help you?
Well, I mean, from a task force perspective, how you can help, what I would say the biggest thing that's needed in town is assets at Fitch High School.
I know.
Right? And really what we found when we did some of the deep dives into it, what puts the pressure on a lot of the fields throughout the rest of the town is athletics from Fitch going to other places to use those fields, and then they become unusable for those areas that are now needing those for youth athletics and things like that. So I think it's imperative that you guys look at your facilities, your athletic facilities, and figure out is this the right path forward? It's a little bit of a weird situation. Normally we would work for the school board on a school project, but working for this kind of community task force that's looking at a broader package, we then come back and say, here's what we think the right thing is for your property. So first and foremost, I'd just say, we'd want your agreement and concurrence that this is the right solution to meet the needs at Fitch. Would want your support to be able to go back to the town council and say, this is what we need. And then it's a very big ticket item, so we fully expect it's going to have to go to referendum, and would expect that you guys would advocate for it just as you do for all other school construction projects, knowing that it's a necessity for all of the students at Fitch to be able to have these assets.
And what's the timeline?
Well, the timeline is the task force is hopeful to be able to get on a referendum for this coming November, if not sooner. But right now, the goal would be a referendum in November. We need to obviously do a whole lot of education and outreach and get people up to speed on this is the package, this is what we need. We are at this point also looking for feedback. We don't want that. We have, maybe you have, just like when we did a whole really good plan for Merritt, and then found out that there was a school going there. If you have other desires or physical needs that need to go that we don't know about, we want to get that incorporated, right? To make sure that this is a plan that you support and want to actively see get constructed. And there are things, I can't stress enough, there are things like those bleachers, like the field house, like the condition of the turf, turf.
That causes us to have a sense of urgency.
Yes, right. And at the very least, now we have, if we can adopt this is the plan going forward. Maybe it's not, we can't spend $56 million right off the bat, but maybe it's, we know we have these really critical issues. We now know where we want to build them from a larger master plan perspective, and is that phase one, right? The task force hasn't talked about phases at all yet. It's talked about this is the solution. And now we're presenting it to you to get some feedback on how you feel about that.
Well, just like the Groton 2020, we had to really find out from the State Department, how much the construction grants would give back to the town. So we knew the exact dollar amount that we were investing. Even though it would cost this much money to build, we knew that we were going to get those. And those reimbursements came in even over what we had predicted, and we were on time with that build and under budget. So, it was a good example of how we work around here. And then we were looking at a grant that has some synergy with the town. So both the town and the school board had put the Fitch Field as the number one priority. That it was just a few $1 million, but it would be a few $1 million that maybe could pay for the bleachers.
Yes.
Right away. So we're really looking to do some collaborative work like that.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And that was it was interesting because when they were telling us their priority, that was our priority too.
Good.
So it worked out nicely.
Good.
Matthew?
So I have a question for Susan. I don't have a reservation about this, but I do have a question. If you can put on, I'm glad we're going to be doing a strategic plan because my question is a strategic question. What other things do you see reasonably likely to be school district needs in the next 20 years that are going to need to occupy some kind of footprint somewhere?
The vintage wing of Fitch, a potential wing at Groton Middle, a new school at Charles Barnum.
And how as best you can
and an early learning center at Mary Morrison.
So, well, Mary Morrison I don't think is going to impinge on this project. So looking at the map, does this project compromise your blue sky hopes?
No, because according to Sam, the addition to Groton Middle is already in the plan for over by where we've got one of the...
Well, the building was built so that it can be extended on the north end of the building. But you'd also lose the special ed parking or bus drop-off. Okay. That would have to go out.
But the vintage wing is, in itself, it's just really reworking, and the manufacturing center is what we're hoping for first. We've got a CIP because EB is working with us, and they're going to help us to be state-of-the-art, southeastern Connecticut. I'm very excited about this project. So,
None of these projects that you envision as possible are going to overlie any of this?
no, they're all within the construct of the building itself.
Jen?
See the section in front, like where, like near the main road at Fitch? It's all trees?
Yes.
Yes. Why weren't we ever considering, or did you consider and not move forward?
Great question. Yeah, we did consider it. Huge amount of land out there that when you look at how constrained we are everywhere else around Fitch, and you got a big piece of property there. However, it's also a big wooded hillside. It's got wetlands both at the top and the bottom.
Okay.
There's a lot of obstacles to be able to overcome there, and at the end of the day, we did look at putting like that practice this field, right? Is it more economical to put it here or here? At the end of the day, we actually had more restrictions on it here, and then when you have that big separation, now it's if you were, let's say you had varsity football practicing here and wanted JV practicing on an adjacent field, it's a lot easier to have it here than have it all the way over here. So that's why we focused here.
And we have one trainer, and she's got to go between the middle school and the high school.
She's great. She's got to go all over the place. Yeah.
I was, like, the reason, because when I was looking at it visually, I was just concerned, and I know there are already, like, two baseball fields down at Sutton, that you said from the main football field to the practice one, that's like 30-foot drop. And then that's even further for like the JV team to walk down if they're
Oh, if they're going down here?
Yeah, right. So then that field's like 30% drop from the current football field. That's probably like another 30 feet drop going down.
It might be a little more, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking, like,
It might be a 100-foot elevation change.
yeah, and I'm just thinking, like, the poor kids, you know what I mean? So we're still probably going to have to
Good for the
do.
leg muscles.
They're athletes. They're supposed to be.
They're young,
Okay.
they're young.
You know.
They're young.
Now, will they all want to walk down there? No.
No,
But
right?
will some of the upper class, they could certainly drive through campus and down
drop
there
them
and,
off.
you know.
Yeah, that's the only reason why I saw the front half, like, it would be a lesser of
They
a
only
walk
have
for
to
the
walk
kids.
down, mom and dad will pick them up. after the-
That's true. Yes, they're walking down, not
They won't
up.
have to walk up.
Okay.
So you would want us to put this on the agenda for the board to vote on it?
Yeah, I think, if you guys can vote on it, adopt it as this is the plan that we would like to proceed with. And then, if there's some language to, work with the town or work with the task force or what, form that partnership.
Right.
To be able to help progress this plan. Because really, the majority is, we're hired through Park and Rec, or contracted through Park and Rec.
Right.
And Mark Berry looked at me and said, there's 2 fields over here, and why? There's one park that's going to have Park and Rec fields, and everything else about this plan is really school fields. The rest, yes, this will still be Sutton Park. It'll still be maintained and operated and rented out in the summer by Park and Rec, but the majority of the field needs and improvements are really.
So we would be voting on the fields at the high school, the whole high school thing, plus Sutton Park.
I would say so.
Okay.
Voting an endorsement.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, but we have to
But
vote.
the Parks and Rec uses our building and would use our fields. I mean,
Yes.
it's we have a lot of synergy.
Yes, I would agree.
That's
Yeah, I'm not saying that there's a separate, I'm just,
right.
yeah, it's, when you look at, we have X amount of fields, and, the majority right now are proposed to be basically school fields. But I think that's where the need is. That's what the study has basically shown, is that it's really high school facilities that are needed.
And I think you all got the presentation. Did you get a copy of the presentation?
No.
I think Ian sent it out one time.
Ian sent out
yes.
earlier one by
Yeah.
the town council. This has got a few more things. I'm happy to send this out.
Can you
to
send it to us? Who are you going to send it to? Susan?
If I could.
Wait, one second. Who will you send it to?
You tell me, whoever you want.
You can send it to me,
Okay.
and I'll send it out,
Yeah.
okay?
Yep.
And this way they'll have it by the time we put it on the agenda to vote
If
to
you
endorse
CC
it.
me, then I'll get it to Joyce, and we'll make sure we keep it in a good, safe place, too.
Perfect.
And you would want this to happen this month or next month?
I mean, the sooner that you can do it, obviously, it's nice to have that endorsement.
Yeah, I just want to say how fun.
There are definitely quite a few people from the public that continue to show up to the town. The town council The timing wasn't great when we presented to town council. It happened to be the same day that our current president had canceled a whole lot of funding for basically everything, and there was a lot of panic in the room as to what's going to happen to education and everything else, right? So it was like, thank you for this report. We really agree. We really want to do this, but we don't know how we're going to pay for this, and we don't know what's happening in our world, so we're afraid. So there's been a lot of public showing up at those public comment sessions at the council to encourage them to take an action to put this on the agenda and make it, start a process for the referendum. So having your support of this and being able to put it back in the council that you guys support this.
What are fields reimbursed at? Something like this.
We'll have to check with the state.
Yeah, that's my short answer too. Because
because that helps.
It fluctuates.
In a project like this, if you go
It fluctuates from year to year, too.
That's true.
Yeah, it does. But we didn't want to speculate. At this point, we're trying to say this is what we need. This is about what we think it's. This is what the construction value is. What the tax implications are a little bit unknown. We did run it with the full value, and it was in the neighborhood. Actually, I think I probably had it, of a few. Total 56 million right now. It's about a 2% mill increase, which on a $300,000 home was about extra $186 a year for over a 20-year bond. So it's not nothing, but also it's a cup of coffee every other day.
You must be a Starbucks. So we could put.
If it were Starbucks, that wouldn't be
We
a year.
can
That would
put
just
this.
be like
At the end of. Wait 1 second, Ian. Wait 1 second. We'll put it on our agenda at the end of March. March what? March something. 24th.
Question on that, but after Ian.
Go ahead, Ian.
So actually, thank you for bringing that up. That's what I was going to suggest, that we put it on the agenda for the 24th. A couple of things. The town councils, one of their items on their agenda for tomorrow night is going over the bonding ordinance referendum, the steps. And as Chad noted, it is quite the process, very time consuming. So the sooner we get started, the better. I would love, I'm in full support of moving forward. I'm very concerned about the ADA compliance and Title IX compliance as far as equal access to facilities. I think the best way forward is a referendum. There's a lot of community support for this. I've been at town council meetings where a number of people have come out, and that's where I learned about the representatives that they have been sending to the previous public sessions that were held by the task force. So, yeah, the sooner the better, and the more that we can advocate for this. It's long overdue, and quite frankly, from more grim point of view too. I mean, like, we are courting lawsuits as well. I mean, the longer we delay this, there are ADA concerns, there are online concerns. So we have to get moving.
I agree.
And the sooner we get that going, the better.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we all agree.
We all agree.
Now, just
Matthew.
Ian, can I just ask Ian one question? Ian, we do have policy tomorrow. It's at 6 and it's all remote. Just as a reminder, because you mentioned the town council meeting.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a town council, it's a Cal meeting tomorrow night.
Oh, okay.
As a thing that people may want to review.
Okay.
The recording afterwards, because there will be a section where they talk about how to move forward with bonding referendum. So it sounds like there is some motivation coming from the council.
Good.
So it sounds like they are listening to the community, and so this could be a great opportunity for the board and the council to work together on something the community really wants.
Why did you ask for anything?
Thank you.
Yeah, so your presentation to the town council, and it was at the time when the president was, and they were like, oh, we don't know about this, this will cost us money, and we're still paying for the schools, so they were kind of nervous. Go ahead, Matthew.
So I know you said, Chad, that the part of this process is going to be a public education or public information. So my question to Bev and to Chad is, would there be any utility in I don't want to call it a public hearing or a public information session before the board endorses it so that people can come here. Is that?
Yeah, it's just for the board to endorse.
Get it.
Okay.
We have done, I will just, so you're aware, we do plan to do more public outreach and public listening sessions. We've heard from several of, there's some technical questions that people want to get into that we just normally don't in a presentation like this. So we don't have the date set yet, but we're trying to get one established before the start of like the spring youth sports really get underway. So we'll have that opportunity for people to come and ask questions for sure.
Would it be useful to use the Fitch Auditorium for that meeting? Do you expect a large number?
Man, I would love to have that problem. So far, we've filled like the senior center, but we haven't had the point of needing a bigger space yet.
Well, I think as one approaches a potentially $50 to $60 million project, the interest will probably pick up.
I'll send it out Parent Square.
That's where I was going to go.
Yeah. I know how to get them out.
Yeah, have some. We can make some very simple flyers that can help to educate and get the word out. And if it went out through Parent Square to every parent in town, that would go a long ways.
Now, can you come back on the 24th and before we vote and give us a quick synopsis? Quick, like 10-minute synopsis.
The 20, which is it? The 24th of this month or next month?
This month.
This month. I should be able to come back on the 24th of
Okay.
this month.
All right.
If you would like, yeah.
We can put you on the beginning.
Yeah, I was going to say, put him in the beginning of the agenda.
Okay. You'll be the first one, Sam. I promise Sam to be
And
the
Sam.
second one.
Yeah.
Well, I probably Sam to be first. You don't mind Sam to kick you down the road a bit. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
At least you remember to put them on.
We'll put you on first, and then we can vote on it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's it for the agenda. Yeah, thank you. And can I have anything else?
Can I channel Andrea?
Yes, do it.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Jen? All those in favor? Say aye. Aye. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.